Greetings, fellow Hot Topic goths. Tiki here, and tonight we are gathered around to celebrate the king of the Hot Topic goths, and specifically to round up and rank his top 10 motion pictures. It's the great Tim Burton ranking podcast. Joining us tonight is my good friend Eli of Little Blue Productions. How you doing, Eli?
Beware of the big green dragon that sits on your doorstep. He eats little boys. What way to, for that to be my introduction. So, yep. But hello, guys. It's good to be back, and well, for part 2. And this is where things are going to look pretty good. And well, this is our top 10 to number 1. So, yep. Oh yeah. And right. As you guys probably noticed, that yes, the thumbnail is different, obviously, and as we stated in part 1, different batch of characters aside from Burton. So,
yeah, for sure. Okay, so Eli, I remember from last time we did this, I had the last pick with number 11 for me being Batman 89, arguably kind of a controversial pick to end out our part 1 on, the fact that Batman 89 did not make it into my top 10. It almost did, barely squeaked by. But with that in mind, why don't you go ahead and kick us off this time? Let me get the banners up really quick. Sorry. Okay, what is your number 10, Eli?
It is Miss Peregrine.
Miss Peregrine, all right.
Yeah, so Miss Peregrine, I think, Miss Peregrine, yeah, I think that's the, that's how it's, because, well, I mean, how her name is spelled is, Peregrine, so it's not like Miss Peregrine, no, nothing like that, so... Yeah, so
I mean, we have Peregrine in our community, so that's what my mind always goes to, honestly. Miss Peregrine, she's a zookeeper. Anyways, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay, so number 10 for me being Miss Peregrine. Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. Well, I remember when this was coming out, and I was not familiar with this. With the because this is based off of a book, of course, and well, because pretty much most of the time, because Burton has done movie adaptations of books, and well, because Miss Peregrine, and you know what, because judging by what goes on in the books, that is something right up Tim Burton's alley, and thus he did it. Yeah, because again, I remember when this film was coming out, seeing the trailers, and I remember when me and my dad, we went to go see Miss Peregrine, and yeah, I think as I recall, yeah, we both enjoyed it, it may not be really one of the best, like, top masterpieces of Burton's, but that's not to say it's bad and such.
I kind of feel the same way about my number 10, honestly, which we'll get to. It's really solid. I think it deserves to be in the top 10. Still wouldn't consider it a masterpiece.
Well, let's face it, because when you put Batman 89 and 11, like, that is one of Burton's top masterpieces.
Yeah, I just like Batman and Batman Returns more. That's just a personal taste thing.
I do like Batman Returns as well, but that doesn't mean I don't dislike Batman 89, and
I don't dislike Batman 89 either. I just did not make my top 10. But anyways,
because no offense, you just seem to be one of those, like, very few people where they just don't really care for Batman 89 that much. Unlike how
I feel like if I was a couple years older, I would have gotten more into the hype of Batman 89. But, I was literally born the year after Batman 89 came out, so I didn't really get the groundswell of hype,
right.
Anyways.
And how your parents did not let you see the first Batman film, but they did allow you to watch Batman Returns. I remember.
Weirdly enough, yes, I remember that.
Yeah, I remember you shared that story. So, anyways, so back to what I was saying. Yeah, again, my dad and I, we went to go see Miss Peregrine. We both enjoyed it, and yeah, because I'm one of the. I don't think no, I don't. I didn't talk about this, nor like in part one, because the other movies that movie adaptations of books that Burton had directed, because I'm not really one of those. I don't know about you, Tiki, but for me, because I'm really not one of those people that has read the books where they are turned into movies. Like, the best examples: Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, Planet of the Apes. Although Chronicles,
Planet of the Apes, no. Rings and Potter, yes. I was very into the books when those movies were coming out. Yeah, for me
okay.
personally.
Although I remember being read to by my mom because the Chronicles of Narnia book, The
Mhm.
Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. So I've seen that book and a little bit of How to Train Your Dragon and so on. But yeah, so Miss Peregrine is not one of those books where I read and such. So, but I think as well, and again, Tim Burton usually sticks very close with the original source material of the books, and well, because it's obvious because what was in the original book of Miss Peregrine being incorporated into the film, because obviously with the misfit with the peculiar children and how they what their personalities are and their appearance and form and what goes on in the story of Miss Peregrine and you know with a young boy who is told by his is it his uncle or grandfather, Terrence Stamp? Do you remember, Tiki?
I'm pretty sure it was his grandfather. I only watched the movie once. I'm pretty sure it was grandfather. I could be wrong.
Okay. Okay, so Terrence Stamp's character, he had known about Miss Peregrine and the peculiar children and passing it on to his grandson and such. And yeah. Um and it's nice to see that, Eva Green once again working with Burton and she plays the title character. And this movie being the only Tim Burton film where you have freaking Samuel L. Jackson well, I mean, him being in a Tim Burton film, but he's playing an antagonist. That was
Mhm.
pretty cool. Um,
I think Eva Green, this is probably my favorite performance of hers. I mean, as I said in the part one, I just think she's got a lot of Mary Poppins energy in this movie.
yeah, good point. Yeah, that's very true. I
Yes,
mean,
Colby, Mrs. Me. Yes.
hmm.
Speaking of Peregrine.
Yeah, Miss Peregrine kind of seems like somewhat similar to what Mary Poppins does. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
It'd be
By the
like
way,
if Mary Poppins like took the children out of their chaotic home lives and whisked them away to a magical land. That's kind of what Miss Peregrine's deal is.
yeah, that there you go. So also, yeah, because okay, so continuing
You think
on.
about it that way, she's almost kind of like a mix of Mary Poppins and like Peter Pan.
In what way of Peter Pan?
Well, in the way that Peter Pan like takes children and basically like lifts them out of their boring existence and is like, hey, children, come with me to this magical place. I don't
Oh,
know.
okay, yeah, I think I get what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of Peter Pan, I don't know if you knew this, Tiki. Hey, boys and girls, we got the official trailer for the upcoming Peter Pan horror flick.
I I
I'm
literally don't think I could care less if I tried.
that one. I hate to say it, this one kind of intrigues me, but
All right.
I can go into full detail. But anyway, so again, so okay, more because continuing with what I was saying about Miss Peregrine, I was going to mention this because this coming out in 2016, and well, because yeah, this was twice where Burton was unable to participate into like not direct, but he still stayed on producer, and I'm of course talking about Alice Through the Looking Glass. Like
Mhm.
he still stayed on producer, but he was not able to direct it, especially well because he was busy with Miss Peregrine, and not to mention Danny Elfman did not do the music and score for that. but of course still did the music and score for Alice Through the Looking Glass. And because Miss Peregrine is the third Tim Burton film that's distributed by 20th Century Fox. The first was Edward Scissorhands, and then the second was Planet of the Apes.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, because you said that you only watched it once. Tiki, do you have any recollection that Tim Burton himself makes a very quick cameo in the film?
I can't say I remember or not, no.
Okay, do you remember that at one point there's like this state fair and such, and with a haunted house?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because all hell breaks loose there, and like the skeletons popping out of there, and well, because the haunted house is kind of like a gateway, and leading to where Miss Peregrine.
Yo, I don't want to get down your throat, man, but like, let's try and keep this to 5 minutes apiece, man.
I know, because I was just saying, because Tim Burton, he makes a very quick cameo. I think he's on a.
Yeah, but like the whole point of these rankings are like for you to give your opinions, not for you to give fun facts or plot summaries, man.
I know, but
I'm sorry, I don't mean to be a dick. It's just this is kind of like the second time in a row that we've kind of like So let's just
but I think I'm just about
two opinions, dude.
As I was saying, I was trying to say this. I think I am about done with what I was saying.
Okay, I'm sorry. I don't mean to jump down your throat. I just don't,
Right.
Yeah. Anyway.
Well, yeah. Just overall, I mean, Miss Peregrine, I quite liked it, and the casting of the film was pretty good. Usually, Tim Burton's films never disappoint with. I think I've said this before, that never disappoints having good casting, and sometimes having some certain actors you would not see all the time. Like, best example, Samuel L. Jackson. And it's because it seemed like it's set up for a sequel, but it never happened. But, if this is a standalone.
I mean, Tim does not like doing sequels, as we already established. So,
as I said, he said that he'd rather jump out of a window than, like, say, direct a sequel to his Planet of the Apes.
Oh, God. That would be really interesting. Like, after all the modern Planet of the Apes, it was just like, okay, screw the motion capture stuff. We're going back to makeup, and we're getting Tim Burton for it.
I mean that would be great because the practical makeup, but no problem with the motion capture. Anyway, so yeah, overall, Miss Peregrine. It's nice to see that this movie adaptation of a book being a perfect fit for Tim Burton because of what the book was like and how this was perfect for Tim Burton to direct. It may not really be the top best films that he's directed, but it's not bad. It is good. It is good. It's not awful. And I quite enjoyed it. So that being my number 10.
All right. Okay, so getting into my number 10, it's pretty similar as far as like I think it's worthy of the number 10 slot, but I still don't necessarily think it's a masterpiece. And for me, that is going to be The Corpse Bride.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, I know this is a big fan favorite for a lot of people, and I still really, really respect it. I mean, there's a reason I have this over Batman 89 in my, it was between this and Batman 89 to make it into the top 10. There's a reason it made it in.
Well, at least Corpse Bride is in, for both of us, our top 10 list, because, it is a good film.
There you go. I think there's a lot to like about this movie. I think the ambition behind it is definitely there. I really like how original the story is. I really like how dark the story is. I think the music, probably I think one of the things that people criticize this movie for is like, oh, the music's not as memorable as Nightmare Before Christmas. And I'm like, it wasn't really trying to be. That's kind of a hard act to live up to. I think the music's still good in its own right.
Well, because it is Danny Elfman doing the music and score.
Yeah. I do think that with this movie, the thing that kind of gets a little bit lost in the weeds for me a little bit as far as the execution, there's a little bit too much downtime. There's a little bit too much where it's just basically like Emily kind of feeling sorry for herself and Victor just kind of having to console her and just being caught in this sort of situation, this awkward kind of like domestic love triangle kind of thing. It's like, it's not exactly the kind of movie like a Frankenweenie where I feel like a Frankenweenie is a lot more accessible to, like, you can put Frankenweenie on any Halloween and just get lost in it. Whereas I feel like Corpse Bride, you kind of have to be in that Tim Burton mood. It's a very melancholy kind of movie. It does have a little bit of a mixed tone. And Eli, if you followed my reviews for any stretch of time, you know that mixed tone is one of those things for me where, like, on the rare occasion, it'll work really well, but most of the time it kind of falls flat for me. I wouldn't say this falls flat, but I will say that, like, I think if the movie would have committed a little bit more to being just super dark, or a little bit more to being like a little bit more lighthearted, a little bit more like, like Halloweeny, like Frankenweenie is. Weenie, Halloweeny. Yeah.
Halloweenish.
I think the movie's in this weird kind of middle ground. It's a cool folk tale. Obviously, the stop motion animation's great, although not as good as Frankenweenie. Kind of like, if it's a little obvious, Frankenweenie's a little higher on my list. But which is interesting because I think you have you had Frankenweenie in your part 1, so I'm definitely curious to hear how you're going to rank this movie. But I will leave that I will leave your opinions to when you get to this movie, because I assume you're going to have it a little higher up than I do.
Oh, yeah, just about.
All right. Okay, just to go over some comments here. Let's see. We have Kogia saying, I hope Tim Burton directs a sequel to Alice Through the Looking Glass. I don't think he's going to do that, man.
We already have Alice Through the Looking Glass.
Yeah, like, we don't need a third Alice movie. I'm sorry.
Even though there are numerous, there's just more than just one story of Alice in Wonderland. I think 2 was enough with Through the Looking Glass.
All right, we got Sonia Patoja in the comments. We are also very excited for Beetlejuice, Sonia. Yeah. Very hyped. That's why we're doing this. She's saying one of her favorite Tim Burton films is Nightmare Before Christmas, Sleepy Hollow, Beetlejuice, and The Corpse Bride. Nightmare Before Christmas is not on this list, technically, just because it's not directed by Burton. But
nor was it in part 2.
Right.
Yeah.
So, Kogia says, I think 10 is a perfectly fair placement for Corpse Bride. Glad you agree. Okay. Sonia Patoja says Edward Scissorhands is an amazing film too.
Oh yeah.
And also I love the TV show Wednesday on Netflix, which is not going to be on this list either because it's a TV show, not a movie. But with Wednesday, it is good to, like, the success of Wednesday definitely has me a little bit more hopeful for Beetlejuice. I'll say that much.
Yeah, all right. It was great to finally see Burton do something, Adam.
Right. Do something!
You two are a perfect match. Oh, finally it's happened. Hallelujah.
All right, Eli, remember, opinions. Number 9. What's your number 9?
It's number 9. And if I can quickly say this about what you said about Frankenweenie, because, well, here's the thing. My top number 10 to 1, it actually was not that bad. It was quite easy, but for part 2, like I said, it was difficult. Mm-hmm. It was. As I said, I don't have a dislike for any single one of his movies, especially those that are not considered the best. But anyway, so with that out of the way, because I wanted to comment and mention that quickly, but so I don't know, like, it's maybe quite a bit of a surprise. I don't know. I mean, I assume, well, probably, obviously you too, because you have this in your top 10 list as I do. Number 9 for me. Here we go. Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Yep.
I respect that placement. I respect it. I mean, I have a lot of nostalgia for Pee-wee, so it's going to be a little bit higher for me. But yeah, I respect the restraint there.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. It is good and such. Well, because
I feel like it's one of those movies where, like, almost any scene you can pick out of the hat, and it's like a classic scene.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I was going to say, because this is what launched Burton's directing career, and from there on, because without Pee-wee's Big Adventure and without Paul Rubens, yeah, so, and because, well, if he had not seen Frankenweenie. But anyway, so Pee-wee's Big Adventure, again, as I said, this is what launched Burton into his big-time directing career, and you know, the fact because, Paul Rubens, when he discovered him, he handpicked Burton to direct a movie adaptation of his own character, because Pee-wee had existed before, obviously, Pee-wee's Big Adventure, and right before Pee-wee's Playhouse. So what goes on in I'm sorry, Pee-wee's Big Adventure, I'm getting it mixed up. What goes on in Pee-wee's Big Adventure? Well, because it's, it's hilarious and fun, and all because Pee-wee, because, he cares about his bike. He lost his bike, and he's trying to get it back. Well, I mean, that's understandable because knowing Pee-wee in this movie, because what he's like, and, well, a very important object to him, and that, of course, being the bike. There's a lot of great, memorable moments, and I know that, you'll probably talk about some of these too, Tiki, when you get to Pee-wee's Big Adventure, because I think the biggest one, of course, would have to be the Large Marge sequence.
I mean, I specifically requested that Large Marge be on the thumbnail, so yes.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I legitimately don't know if there be any Burton style, the way that we think of Burton style as his style, without specifically Large Marge.
Yeah, well, I mean, Large Marge is not the only, Tim Burton stylish thing.
No, definitely not, but I feel like it's the most, it's like his signature in the movie. You know what I mean? It's like the signature Burton moment.
Yeah, exactly. And because it was stop motion, and we all know the style of stop motion of Burton. So,
mm-hmm.
Well, and also the bike. The bike was designed by Burton, according to Paul. Paul was involved in designing the bike too. Well, both Paul Rubens and both Burton, they worked on the designs and such for Pee-wee's Big Adventure. And yeah, at times you can tell where there's some Burton-ish styles and so on. But anyways, yeah, just what goes on in Pee-wee's Big Adventure and where the story goes, the long journey that Pee-wee has, him bumping into some, unfortunate, stuff again, when he runs into Large Marge, or even say when he accidentally knocks over the bikers' bikes, and that famous dance that he does on the, that and dun, 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 oh yeah, that's good, and the nice beat, and the T-Rexes, the statues, and
iconic filming location.
Yep, and not to mention they're still there, and they even painted the T-Rex having Pee-wee's outfit in honor of Paul Rubens. That's great.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and also the fact that in that sequence, Pee-wee kind of flirting with a waitress, and when the waitress's boyfriend shows up, oh boy. Although another what's her face, who had feelings for Pee-wee, and when Pee-wee, and to speed things up, because Pee-wee roaming around into Warner Brothers, and of course he gets his bike back, and then sooner or later he would find himself be involved in a movie based off of his adventure. The fact because James Brolin plays Pee-wee, and Pee-wee does get a cameo, but his voice was dubbed. And it was a nice way to end.
Mr. Herman. Mr. Herman.
Mr. Pee-wee Herb. Yeah, and do you remember that the voice of one of the voice actresses from Rugrats was in Pee-wee's?
Of course, yes. E.G. Daily is Dottie.
Yeah. Dottie was a good character. And again, as I said, Dottie having feelings for Pee-wee.
Dottie represents the struggle of every woman who has feelings for an asexual man.
Ain't that the truth? Yeah. And Pee-wee in this, he was more like a kid, but when say Pee-wee's Big Top Pee-wee happened, yeah, that's when
I've still yet to see Big Top Pee-wee. I'm going to be totally honest with you.
You have not seen it yet?
No, I've never seen Big Top Pee-wee. I've obviously seen Pee-wee's Big Holiday. I love Pee-wee's Big Holiday, arguably even better than this movie.
Yeah, I think I did watch that once, but it's been a long time.
Oh, Dragon and I have a soft spot for Pee-wee's Big Holiday, man. We really do.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Well, I'm glad to see that you guys enjoyed it. Let me give you a heads up about Big Top Pee-wee. I've seen it. I've done my review on it on the Little Blue channel. It does not disappoint.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, the circus setting kind of makes me hesitant, but I digress. I digress.
I think you'll manage. I think you'll be okay with
No,
that.
it's not that I mind circuses. I just don't want it to be like a whole movie of like, and it's Pee Wee and a bunch of random circus acts.
Well, it's more than just the circus people.
Uh-huh.
So,
all right. Anyways,
yeah, and the fact that Pee Wee's like growing up a bit and he's engaged, but then he falls in love with one member of the circus. So, not to give you that much spoilers, but anyways, so yeah, just overall, Pee Wee's Big Adventure. Without this, well, Burton, who knows what would have happened, where Burton would have gone, but we're all glad that, well, it's thanks to the late Paul Rubens and this movie that what kicked Burton into his career, and also this is where he and Danny Elfman would first collaborate, and from there on, yeah. And Pee-wee's Big Adventure, it had a good story, and yeah, just what more do I have to say? Pee-wee's Big Adventure is a classic, and from the '80s, and it is technically considered a Tim Burton film. So yeah, and so that being my excuse me, that being my number 9 spot, Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
Okay, my number 9 spot is this is kind of where I don't necessarily think we're in like masterpiece territory yet, but we're in banger territory for sure.
I think by top, I don't mean cut you off. I think by top 5, that's when we'll get into masterpiece territory.
Kind of same with me. Okay. Even more specifically, I would say my top 3 is like the creme de la creme. We might have the same top 3, just in a different order. That really wouldn't surprise me.
Well, we'll find out when we get there.
But my number 9 is going to be Batman Returns.
There it is.
So here's the thing with Batman Returns. I just think that, like, it feels like, yes, we do get less actual Batman stuff in this movie compared to Batman 89. I kind of feel like Michael Keaton isn't quite as memorable as he was in Batman 89. But I feel like everything that this movie adds to the Batman formula just more than makes up for that. I think that aesthetically, Burton just goes hog wild with the Gotham City setting as far as like the art direction and production design goes. I love to see that. I love the Danny DeVito stuff is just amazing. Eli, was it your dad or your mom or someone who's offended by the penguins?
Both of them were.
Okay, I'm sorry, but I love the penguins with the rockets on their backs.
Especially my dad. He was the biggest one to be offended by that.
Well, I'm sorry, but I love that visual. All right, I'm sorry.
Well, that's your opinion, Tiki. That's all that matters.
I don't know, man. This movie just takes such creative leaps and risks. As far as a superhero movie goes, I think it's kind of an enigma. Like, I don't necessarily think you can get away with having such an out of left field sort of like approach to a sequel like this in today's movie landscape. I really don't. I mean, this thing is it's just so different from the original Batman. And for my money, I do think, even though I will agree that like maybe the hero villain kind of like, like Batman squaring off against the Joker is definitely more iconic than, Batman going toe to toe with Catwoman and Penguin. But I do think that this is one of the few superhero movies where it does the sequel thing where they just throw in more villains, and it actually works really well. I never feel like, even if you include Max Schreck and even Max Schreck's son in the mix as villains, I still don't really think it feels all that crowded. I think if anything, the plot is just a little bit wonky. Like, there's maybe a bit too many moving parts within the plot, like the Penguin running for mayor and all that stuff. Selena Kyle really could have been her own movie in the grand scheme of things, and we've talked about how she almost did have her own movie.
Tiki, by the way, since you're talking about that, because Kogios just said, I love how much Batman Returns focuses on the villains while still being able to give Batman plenty of amazing, memorable moments.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think Batman has, like I said, I don't think he has as many iconic moments in this movie as he does in the original Batman '89. But I still think that he's definitely serviceable. He's definitely like way better than, I mean, with all due respect to Val Kilmer, because I do respect the hell out of Val Kilmer.
Oh yeah, me too.
And George Clooney's fun. And you know how I feel about Batman and Robin. Batman and Robin is my comfort place. But
George Clooney was a good Batman.
He was a good Batman if you're casting for Adam West style Batman.
Yeah, but the problem is George Clooney is Batman. He was in the wrong Batman movie.
Hi, Freeze. I'm Batman. God, anyways. Oh, that movie is my trash. But
yeah.
So yeah, I think Danny Elfman's score, honestly, is just like I don't even think people talk enough about just how much more bombastic. It kind of reminds me of the leap from Spider-Man 1 to Spider-Man 2. Like Spider-Man 1 was awesome foundation. Spider-Man 2 just builds off of that foundation, gives us like some all-time iconic superhero music. I think the same can be said here.
I especially love the opening credits, the music and score of Elfman's and Batman Returns, during the credits. The opening credits, that was good.
Kogia saying, in his opinion, Batman Returns is a borderline flawless film. Only nitpick is Batman hypocritically telling Catwoman not to destroy anybody. Yes, it is very hypocritical after the first movie. And Batman unmasking himself in front of Max Schreck. I don't necessarily mind that because I kind of feel like that's kind of like...
Well, he was really unmasking himself to Selena.
Yeah, exactly. There was motivation behind that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, what Kogia says about it being the most stylish superhero film he's ever seen, I think that comment definitely has some weight to it. And I think just this movie just being so of Tim Burton, like Batman '89, it's a great movie. It's a great superhero movie. It set the foundation. It's iconic. Mm-hmm. It feels like Tim Burton playing with toys that he doesn't necessarily love, if that makes sense. This movie, it's like, okay, he's got the Batman action figure still, but he's playing in his own toy box. And I think that just delivers just a way more memorable experience for me, even though there's only one movie dividing the two. And I'm going to be straight up honest with you. The Corpse Bride is at number 10 almost primarily because I didn't want to have the two Batman movies back to back with each other.
Yeah.
I honestly think the two Batman movies pretty much like they almost kind of cancel each other out, where it's like I think Batman '89 probably has a bit stronger of a plot, probably has a bit stronger of a villain, definitely a more memorable Michael Keaton performance. This movie, way more stylish, way more memorable as far as like I actually like what they do with the villains more. So yeah. All right, we got Dragon in the house. Dragon says Returns is a Tim Burton film featuring Batman characters. That's a great way to put it. Yeah. All right.
Burton.
It certainly is, and that's why I love it.
He misspelled. Yeah, we've all been there. We've misspelled.
All right. Okay. So yeah, number 9, Batman Returns. Dragon, in case you missed it, my number 10 was Corpse Bride. Eli, what was your number 10?
It was Miss Peregrine.
Miss Peregrine.
And number 9 for me was Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
All right. What's your number 8, Eli?
Okay. See, I wish... Well, even though I said that my list from 10 to 1 was not that difficult, still, I wish that I could have... Now, if I were to, if I were doing my very own top list of my favorite Burton films, I would put this one higher. But for this, yeah, and because we're where we were going with this and ranking his films, I get it, but, still. So, okay. And I guess, for this one, it makes sense where it's at. So, yeah. Okay, so number 8 for me, Sleepy Hollow.
Okay. Very respectable.
Yeah. Like I said, if I were to do like my very own top 10 list as of this stream, I would, and I would put Sleepy Hollow higher because I really love Sleepy Hollow.
And you and I are going to actually do an individual retrospective on Sleepy Hollow on your channel. So look forward to that, folks. That'll be an interesting discussion because I don't necessarily love it as much, but I respect the hell out of it, though. I think much like Batman Returns, I think Sleepy Hollow is one of the most like ambitiously stylish and thematically bold things that he's ever done.
Mm-hmm. And this is something else that's right up Burton's alley. So, and Sleepy Hollow is based off of the book, and I think supposedly it's believed that Sleepy Hollow, well, the Headless Horseman did exist, and well, there probably was an Ichabod Crane, but anyways, I think I'm correct on that. But anyway, so yeah, because I don't call them on the Little Blue channel. I don't call them retrospects. They're review videos. I'm reviewing, discussing, talking about the films. So, but yeah, so as of the stream, yeah, because that's what me and Tiki are gonna do. But we're gonna do another one, which has to do with something that has to do with Burkensville, and that's all I'm gonna say. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. So,
which I'm also going to be doing a 20. What is it? It's the 25th anniversary of that movie. I'm gonna be doing one stream with probably Rohit on that movie, and then one stream with you on that movie. So I'm gonna be talking a lot about that movie in the next month. But you know what? I'm all for it. Honestly, with that movie, I can't talk enough about it.
Me too. It's like when we did Home on the Range not long ago. I did my review on Home on the Range on the Little Blue channel, and not long after that, I joined you. Doing a retrospective of Home on the Range. So same goes for me. I don't care. I have absolutely no problem if I do like a video of something twice.
All right. But back to Sleepy Hollow.
Yeah. So. So again, number 8 for me, Sleepy Hollow. Again, I would put this higher, in my opinion, like for my very own top list, but for this, yeah. And it only seems fitting and necessary. So Tim Burton's Sleepy Hollow from 1999. Well, like I said, Sleepy Hollow being something else right up Tim Burton's alley, it's a perfect match for someone like Tim Burton doing a movie adaptation of Sleepy Hollow. And and I think when people think of Sleepy Hollow, they would think of this and Disney's take on Sleepy Hollow. But I think they would also think of the Sleepy Hollow series on CW. So
more modern audiences would definitely think of that. Yes.
Did I get that right? Was that on CW?
I believe it was on the CW. Maybe Dragon could clarify that for us.
Yeah, because I know that Sleepy Hollow did a crossover with Bones, and Bones was on Fox TV.
Bones was on Fox, yeah.
So you know what? I think I remember now. I think Sleepy Hollow was on Fox TV.
But Sleepy Hollow Fox, all right.
Yeah, Dragon, if you're still there, you could clarify. So
I mean, I don't know if he'll know. I just know that Dragon's pretty familiar with the CW lineup. So
yeah, I would figure someone like Dragon would easily know this. So, but anyways, I know I would too, but I just can't remember right now. But anyway, so yeah, again, Tim Burton's Sleepy Hollow. I love where his own version goes, and okay, we were right. It is okay. I was right. It is Fox.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Dragon. Yeah. So again, as I was saying, I like the direction that Tim Burton's Sleepy Hollow goes, and like I said, his movies never disappoint with casting. The casting for Sleepy Hollow really good, especially you got the group of guys from from Jeffrey Jones and the late Michael Goff, Ian McDermott, aka Palpatine.
I forgot that fucking Jeffrey Jones was in this movie.
All right, just keep it to yourself for this.
Well, we'll get there when we get to Beetlejuice. Let's just say Jeffrey Jones is one of the reasons Beetlejuice is not ranked number 1 for me.
Well, I know. I mean, even like I recall what both you and Dragon had to say about Jeffrey Jones. But say what you will about Jeffrey Jones, I get it. But there's no denying that
I mean, the man had talent, but
yes,
he also had other things that are
yes,
very unsavory.
but just on the side of acting, he was fantastic. So
Sure, but you know,
yeah,
it's a
okay,
tricky,
well,
tricky, yeah.
okay,
Anyways,
but anyway, so okay, so anyway, so again, great casting, and also Christopher Lee and Martin Landau. They have short cameos in this.
Christopher frickin' Walken is the Headless Horseman. Again, one of the
Yeah,
all-time great Burton villains, I think.
yeah, and the fact that probably this like because all that because an easy role for Christopher Walken because all he had to do was just look menacing looking and the only time he would speak is just going
Yeah, nah.
yeah. Did you know that Marlon Brando was considered for the headless horseman?
Oh, that would have been insane. I did
It
not know
yeah, it would have been, but I think we'd all be glad it turned eventually it
that.
was Christopher Walken.
The visual in this movie I will never forget is the tree trunk full of heads.
Yeah, pretty
I
much.
watched this movie when I was like 9 years old, and that shit rocked me.
And Dragon just commented saying, "It's one way for Walken to get ahead in this business." Good one, good one. Well, yes, the tree, and where the headless horseman lies, that being disturbing, but not just that. Like the visuals. I mean, especially when the headless horseman gets his head back. Do you have anything to say on that one?
No, I mean it's great. I think I pretty much already kind of said what I need to say about it, though.
Okay, yeah.
The headless horseman with cue cards. If it was Brando. Oh God.
Yeah, that's what Marlon Brando did. So yeah. Okay. So, anyways, and Johnny Depp being cast as Ichabod Crane, perfect, of course. And Sleepy Hollow being the first, well, as of still to this day, the only Tim Burton film where Christina Ricci is one of the main stars and being in a Tim Burton film. I know because
Which is weird because like Christina Ricci feels like she'd be all over his filmography. You know what I mean?
She definitely seems like one of those actresses, and with the face like that, that's perfect in the world. And Burton, well, I mean, she's been in Sleepy Hollow and in Wednesday Addams. So, yeah. So, I think Christina.
Have you seen Yellow Jackets by any chance, Eli?
I'm very Showtime. The relationship with me and Showtime is very mutual.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Just
I'm,
Christina Ricci does have a very memorable performance in that show.
I know
That's all
that.
I'll say.
Yellow Jackets. I think Yellow Jackets is probably like one of those very, and I say very, very few shows on Showtime that I'm at least slowly but surely willing.
I would watch it. I would honestly watch it just for Christina Ricci. Honestly, I think her character is that good.
Well, no, I don't think not just her, but I think also Juliette Lewis. She's great too. So.
Juliette Lewis is great. It's an engaging premise. Anyways, this isn't a Yellow Jackets podcast. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so again, Christina Ricci's performance in Sleepy Hollow, I think was pretty good, and also like Ichabod's. Yeah, I think this is like the only Sleepy Hollow movie adaptation that does this. Where I don't know, because where in this. Getting some flashbacks and backstory on young Ichabod Crane and his mother, being played by Lisa Marie, at the time, Burton's girl. And the twists and shocking moments that happen, and technically the Headless Horseman is technically an antagonist of this, but whom the real antagonist is, and turned out to be, the wife of Christina Ricci's on-screen father, and stepmother and so on. Like she was,
which Van Tassel being the antagonist, not exactly the most surprising thing, but still pretty well revealed twist.
Yeah,
well done.
And it's nice to see that in Tim Burton's Sleepy Hollow, there was some pretty good. There were some funny moments. Not to mention Tim Burton paid a little bit of tribute and such, and references to Disney's Sleepy Hollow. Like best examples, Ichabod riding on the horse backwards, and hitting a tree stick.
You know what? I know for a fact that is a tribute, obviously, to the animated movie. But whenever I see him riding the horse backwards, I just think of Dudley Do Right.
Yeah, well, look at it this way: Headless Horseman, and even Disney's Headless Horseman, they did that before Dudley Do Right.
That's true. That's true. That's a good point.
Yeah, so there you
Fair
go.
enough.
Yep. So that gag of riding the horse backwards. Yep. Disney's Sleepy Hollow did that.
All right.
So, in the climax and the gruesome stuff, and and especially like
I love how cartoonishly red all the blood is in this movie. It's very much a throwback to like Italian, like giallo cinema.
yeah, I mean, honestly, because I never thought of that in Tim Burton's Sleepy Hollow. The blood.
Oh, I very much think Tim Burton's Sleepy Hollow is very much a giallo throwback. Yeah, I think that's like one of the core things about it.
I never thought of that, like being cartoonish.
Oh yeah, no. Honestly, go back and rewatch it with that in mind. It's pretty obvious.
I've seen Tim Burton's Sleepy Hollow plenty of times, and not once did it cross my mind and did it occur to me that.
But now that I'm saying it, doesn't it make sense?
I honestly don't know right now.
Okay, fair enough.
Maybe when I watch it again, who knows? But I mean, even
I know almost for a fact that that's what he was kind of going for, especially with the cartoon blood.
Okay.
Anyways.
Well, the blood I never thought of. Besides, there is bright blood and such. Come on. Yeah, again, just the gruesome stuff and the heads being chopped off, and most of this film having good practical effects and such, especially with the bodies and the heads, and a bit of CGI, of course, especially for the Headless Horseman. Ray Park was one of the stunt performers of the Headless Horseman. Really good.
Nice.
Yep. That scene, which great sequences that were in Sleepy Hollow, and yeah, because I mentioned Ray Park, the one part where the horseman is fighting and having like a little bit of a weapon fight with those two axes he has.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was Ray Park.
Nice.
Yeah. All right. So, yeah, I mean, again, just great moments that happen in this, and with the gruesome deaths, and that's what you would expect from, like, say, something Sleepy Hollow in this case. Well, especially Tim Burton doing Sleepy Hollow. The music and score by Danny Elfman, really good. With the casting, and again, just the twist reveals and whom the antagonist is, and when the Headless Horseman gets his head back, and you know what? Because very fitting that the Headless Horseman takes her with him. What was her name again?
Katrina.
Thank you, Katrina. Yeah, because
I mostly know that from the Disney version.
Okay. Well, I mean, you're not talking about Christina Ricci's character, are you?
Yes.
I'm talking about the antagonist, the female antagonist.
Oh, I'm sorry. I do not know her name off the top of my head.
Okay, well, you know who I'm talking about, obviously.
Yeah.
How she meets her demise, very fitting, as the Headless Horseman gives her, I guess you could say, like, the kiss of death. And especially many times were, and it's funny, Ichabod just fainting. So... And how the movie ends, and because the time and setting of Sleepy Hollow taking place right at the end of the 19th century, and when the 20th century arrives, and coincidentally, because when this movie came out, the 20th century was coming to an end, and we were entering in the 21st century. So talk about perfect timing and when this movie was made. Very, very.
And now this movie is 25 years old, and I am also old.
Right. I feel so old.
Oh, I do though. I do. All right.
How old were you again when this movie came out?
9 years old.
Wow. And again, you did state this too in part 2, because you saw Sleepy Hollow when it came out in theaters, and it was one of like the.
I didn't see it in theaters, but I definitely like rented it. And
Oh,
it's
okay.
one of the first R-rated movies that my parents allowed me to watch. Probably second to The Shining, which is a
So
really fucking like throw your kid into the deep end first R-rated movie to watch, but whatever.
yeah, I think the same went for me when me and my dad we went to see The Shining on the big screen. So
Oh, nice, nice.
yeah, because well nowadays plenty of like classic movies returning to the big screen. I'm sure you are aware of that, Tiki.
I have a bone to pick with that with my local theater because they just keep recycling like, hey, we're going to go through all the Harry Potter movies and now we're going to go through all the Lord of the Rings movies. Now we're going to go through all the Harry Potter movies again. And then one week we'll just randomly throw in like, I don't know, like Dirty Dancing or something. And then back to Harry Potter. And I'm like, "Oh my god, please, there's other classic movies besides these two franchises." Jesus.
Well, they do, of course, they do that still, but
No, but
yeah,
I'm just saying, if you're gonna do like big 2000 franchises, at least give us like some Raimi Spider-Man, give us some Pirates of the
yeah,
Caribbean. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah, absolutely.
Like
Give
diversity. Diversity is the spice of life. Hell, give us some Narnia. Give us some Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. You know, as you were saying. Anyways,
Yeah, and just give those that you were showing God knows how many times. Give them a rest for a
I'm
while.
so sick. Every Sunday, I look to see like, oh, is there a flashback movie that I'll because they call it flashback cinema, and I'm like, is there a flashback movie I'd be
You have
interested in
that
seeing?
too. You have flashback cinema too.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, because I wanted to mention flashback cinema. Yeah, because here where I live in West
All right,
Virginia.
we're going on a little bit of a tangent, but it's
Okay,
all
but
good because
just just overall, yeah, because here in West Virginia, we have flashback cinema as well. That's great to see. We
do you
also
have a
have
Cinema West?
Cinema West.
Yeah, because that's the maybe that's just different chains use that same titling. Anyways,
I don't know. I
okay, it's
would
all good.
know
It's all good.
but
But yeah,
we do have. I know you probably would have this too. Fathom Events, we have that too.
oh yes, we have. Anyways, let's get
Yeah,
back on
just
track here.
just overall, and in closing for me, Tim Burton's Sleepy Hollow. It is definitely one of my top favorites of his. And again, I would put this up higher, but for this list, and because this is a ranking, yeah, I mean,
So basically, like what you're trying to say is like if this was a favorite list as opposed to a best list, you might have it higher.
yeah, and as I also clearly established, like if I were to do like my very own top favorite,
Right.
my top favorite Tim Burton films list, that would be higher.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, so but for this, it's understandable. But overall, because yeah, I love Tim Burton's Sleepy Hollow. It's one of my top favorites. Even though it's not higher on my list for this, yeah, where it's at and being number 8, it is understandable. So there you go.
Okay. All right, my number 8 is going to be Frankenweenie. And now you notice a
Mm,
little bit of a pattern here. I have Batman 89, then Corpse Bride, then Batman Returns, and now Frankenweenie. And that's honestly because I kind of have a hard time differentiating these four. Like I already established, I feel like the two Batman movies both kind of have strengths and weaknesses that kind of even themselves out. I kind of feel the same way about Frankenweenie and Corpse Bride. That being said, I think I like even more so. I think I strongly prefer Frankenweenie to Corpse Bride. Corpse Bride is great. I think Frankenweenie though. I feel like we're truly getting into like the masterpiece territory with Burton because I think this
yeah,
movie just absolutely like knocked it out of the park. I love the black and white in this movie. It looks so good. I think it's going to hold up just incredibly well. I think 30, 40 years down the line this movie is still going to look just gorgeous.
mm,
Again, I feel like the movie's very streamlined. I feel like they get to the point quickly. Sparky is in zombie mode within like maybe the first 15 minutes, which is great. It's a brisk runtime. There's not a lot of complicated lore like there is in Corpse Bride, which I appreciate. I think the one thing that Corpse Bride definitively has going over Frankenweenie is that Corpse Bride is technically a Danny Elfman musical, and those just by their very nature, it's like you do miss the songs a little bit,
mm,
but I don't know, man. I mean, I think Frankenweenie. Martin Landau has some really, really great stuff as the history teacher in this movie. I know Dragon in
yeah,
particular is has a pretty big soft spot for Martin Landau in this movie for good reason.
And not just him, but also the father being voiced by Martin Short.
Indeed. And oh god, okay, Martin Short is the father. Like, I think we already brought this up, but like subtle, subdued Martin Short. Not something you see often, but it's so cool when you do see it. It's so cool to see Martin Short play restrained. So yeah, I don't know, man. I love how big the finale gets. I love the kaiju element to it. There's just so much in there. I feel like this movie's just kind of like a classic. Like, if I were to pick one Tim Burton movie that just like I would show every Halloween for the rest of my life, this would probably be it. Honestly, I think this movie is like the classic, like perfect Halloween watch. It just has all those sort of feels. Plus, it has a very heartfelt story at the heart of it too. Yeah, I don't know. We're getting into some real bangers here.
Yep.
Right. Kogia says Frankenweenie is another film I haven't seen. The Spider-Man films have been re-released in theaters recently. I heard about that. I missed it.
Yeah, because there was like I think there was like a kind of like a marathon or something with all three. So
Kogia says his first R-rated movie was Aqua Teen Hunger Force : movie film for theaters. I definitely remember when that movie came out. I think my dad and I were maybe like 2 out of like maybe 5 people in the whole theater when we went to see it. My first R-rated movie, I've said this before, I'll say it again because I wear it like a badge of honor. My first R-rated movie was Jason X.
The one where he travels into the future.
Yes, a fact that I am very proud of, because Jason X to me is kind of like the R-rated equivalent of Batman and Robin. It is just absolutely my kind of trash. I love it.
Would Jason X, I don't really fully know this. Would Jason X be considered like one of the top like fan favorites from the franchise?
I think it depends on the fan. I'm not really a fan of Friday the 13th in general. So Jason X is absolutely towards the top of my list. But I feel like for people who are like into the lore and into the the continuity of the Friday the 13th movies, they're probably not going to like it as much. Anyways. Okay.
And also, Dragon commented this a little earlier because when I talked about Sleepy Hollow, Elektra approves of all the blood choices.
Yeah, do you get that joke?
I do. Because, the character of Elektra from Marvel.
Splishy splashy in the blood, Matthew. Splishy splash. No, Dragon and I had this big running joke when we were covering Daredevil about Elektra just having, like, a big old fascination with blood. I like when the blood goes splishy splash, Matthew. So stupid. All right, Eli, what is your number 7?
Oh boy. Well, you know what? I don't know. I'll find out once I say it and what your reaction will be to this because, I don't know. I mean, okay. Let's just say, like, before I say the name, I will say this. This is a really good one from Burton's. But for this being number 7, again, as I said, it was a bit tricky for me, just a little bit, as I said, for, when I was doing my top 10 to 1 list and which ones, I was choosing. But yeah, just one of those things. But, okay. For number 7, Sweeney Todd.
Okay, not too far off from where I have Sweeney Todd. And I agree. I think Sweeney Todd is kind of a hard one in his filmography to rank. So go ahead. What do you have to say about it?
Okay. Well, I was definitely not able to, like, years ago, and when this came out, like, definitely because I was not at the right age to watch it, but actually, because as of the stream,
I was like a high school and senior. That makes me, I was like a high school senior when this came out. That makes me feel old.
Okay, well, did you see it when it came out?
Yes, I saw it when it came out, yes.
Okay, well, my point being, because as of the stream, a few months ago this year, I did finally watch it for the first time, and I was not disappointed by it because what goes on in Sweeney Todd, and well, Sweeney Todd is based off of a stage show and play and so
Of
on,
course.
and with what goes on in Sweeney Todd and with its story and the songs, well, this being something else that's right up Tim Burton's alley. And I feel like pointing this out because it does have music and a score to it, but apparently, because when I've looked at the IMDb page, Danny Elfman did not do the music and score for this. In fact, there's no composer when looking at
No,
its IMDb
because
page.
everything from the songs to the musical score lifted directly from the Broadway show. That's why.
Yeah, but there would still have to be someone conducting it, right? Because
Yeah, but they didn't write the music though.
okay, well, I'm just saying because of course they'd have to probably well, obviously they'd bring in Danny Elfman to conduct the music.
I don't know. I don't know.
I mean, if you get what
I
I'm
mean,
trying to
maybe
say.
Danny Elfman just likes to do original stuff. I don't know.
Well, I'm just saying because, but anyway, so um, yeah, so Sweeney Todd and what Burton brought to Sweeney Todd was really good, and I've come to realize that a good chunk of musicals, because you would sometimes you'd expect happy-go-lucky things going on in musicals, but most of them, geez, they can have some intenseful stuff and drama to them. Like that's examples
I mean,
like
even something like Spielberg's West Side Story, like that's not
yes.
necessarily like super intense, but it's definitely got a fair share of drama to it.
Well, the original West Side Story, directed by Robert Wise, had that too.
Uh huh.
I can also, Sound of Music had a little bit of that too. Newsies, I recall. But anyway, but in Sweeney Todd, yeah. Not to mention because, well, very gruesome stuff that happens. And, well, this being the second film for Burton's where there's a lot of, bright red and gruesome images, because the first being Sleepy Hollow and then this. And, yeah, and the casting for Sweeney Todd was really good. Like I said, never disappoints. Any film of Burton's never disappoints with casting. And for this one, well, of
I have
course,
some notes on casting, but I'll save
you
my piece for when
you
I get to it.
you what?
I have some notes on the casting, but I'll save my piece when I get to it.
Oh boy, are they negative or?
Well, let's just say I kind of wish that I think that Depp and Bonham Carter do a really good job with their acting,
Yeah,
not so much their singing. But we'll get there. We'll get there.
yeah. Well, again, for me, because I think the casting for Sweeney Todd was good. Aside from Depp and Carter, well, knowing them, of course, they're both fantastic. And the other cast members like Alan Rickman, Timothy Spall, Sacha Baron Cohen, and so on, I think they were pretty good, and they fit quite right well in Sweeney Todd and being done by Burton. And I will say this because in my opinion, on them singing Depp and Carter, their singing did not bother me. I think they were quite good.
Here's the thing, though, Eli. I grew up with a bunch of Broadway soundtracks in my household. The original Sweeney Todd was one of them. So I know what Sweeney Todd sounds like with professionally trained Broadway singers. So it's just impossible for me to kind of get that out of my head. You know what I mean? It's no fault of the movie itself. But I'm just saying if they would have had not necessarily Hugh Jackman himself, but someone like a Hugh Jackman who actually does have the pipes for it, I don't know.
Well, would it be fair to say that Tim Burton's take on Sweeney Todd,
Sure.
and with Johnny Depp and Helena Bonham Carter singing, don't you think that's fair? And because
No, they're both awkward, weird freaks, which
this
does fit the characters.
Well, my point being, because this was Burton's take on Sweeney Todd, so his own version. So
No, I get what you're saying.
Thank you. Yeah. So that's because I know exactly, but yeah. So out I don't know, because I mean, for me, I mean, I'm very mixed. Like, I mean, that's not to say I hate. I mean, I'm not. I don't hate Broadway stuff and such. Like, I mean, I'm not really a full. Unlike you, I'm not really like a full blown, like, say, musical Broadway person. But that's not to say
I
I
mean,
don't hate.
compared to Monkey, I'm nothing. But like, yeah, compared to you, I'm like basically the Venn diagram could pretty much go down the line where Monkey is like the super expert. I'm the casual fan, and you probably appreciate the art form, but aren't that big of a fan of it in general.
Yeah. Well, and also I hate to say this because for me, the songs in Sweeney Todd, again, me for me, they're they're unforgettable because I hate to say that, except for one. This one I quite enjoyed,
They're
and
forgettable, not unforgettable.
what is it that I'm trying to say? Because
You're trying to say they're forgettable, but you just said they're unforgettable.
to me, yeah, to me, sadly, they're forgettable. The songs in Sweeney Todd,
And
except for
this is why the songs in Sweeney Todd work so much better with professional Broadway performers, Eli. All
well, all together, okay.
right.
Even like seeing the Broadway show and such of Sweeney Todd, I probably would still feel the same way. But I'm trying to get to saying this, that is except for one song in Sweeney Todd. Not to mention, this was featured in the Nostalgia Critics top 11 villain songs, which of course being Pretty Women.
Mhm.
I that's the only song that I've heard a good chunk of times, and I've come to know that song so well from Sweeney Todd. The only song that I remember so well from Sweeney Todd, you know, even if it's, you know, Tim
I think
Burton.
I will say that even as a Broadway show, Sweeney Todd is not exactly a musical that's full of like earworms. That's not the show it's trying to be.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and yeah, because again, the song Pretty Woman was good, and say what you will, but I think Rickman and Depp's performance and them, you know, singing the song, I think it was pretty good. And also, well, how a reprised version of it, and this is, you know, it's where the climax is getting close, and well, because, you know, they're once again singing the song, and well, and with the story in Sweeney Todd, and you know, Sweeney Todd's life is so tragic, and how he became a completely different person, and
Mhm.
it's all because of the main antagonist, which being Alan Rickman's character, the judge. And God, the judge is just so
I feel
despicably.
like this movie has some of the best twists in any Burton movie. And those twists are all from the Broadway show, but I do feel like Burton elevates them with how like just macabre he makes everything.
Yeah, like the biggest one, of course, would have to be all this time. This
Hmm.
lady who just messed up and such, she turned out to be the lost wife of Sweeney Todd,
Oh yeah.
his lost love and such, and the mother to their child. And it was nice to see. I think it's obvious because we don't see them again, you know, right at the end of the movie. But we are left to assume, yeah, because yeah, Sweeney Todd, you know, has a daughter, and the daughter ran away with what's him face, who's like quite close with Sweeney Todd, so they ran away, and we are left to assume that probably.
Anthony, the blandest character in the movie.
Well, but he still had a big important part in Sweeney
No,
Todd.
I like Anthony. I'm just playing around.
Yeah. So yeah,
He
again,
is kind of the everyman of the story.
uh-huh. Well, my point being is that Anthony and Sweeney Todd's daughter, we are left to assume that, well, because they did escape, they successfully escaped, and well, they would more than likely because they would have their happily ever after. And well, unfortunately, she like the daughter would never get to see both her parents again, and well, tragically and sadly, they would meet their demise. And God, because the ending to that quite dark and intense, and
Dare I say this might be the single most dark ending to a Tim Burton movie? I
out of
honestly think that's pretty definitive, honestly.
out of all of Burton's
Out of
films.
all of Burton's filmography, I think this might have the darkest ending.
Okay,
Keep in
well,
mind, I think a lot of Burton's movies for his like hot topic goth as they are kind of a little bit optimistic, especially towards the end. But this is not one of them.
Yeah. Yeah, just, overall, like the dark and tragic ending to Sweeney Todd. Yeah.
Mhm.
It was really well done. And just overall, Tim Burton's Sweeney Todd for me, it was quite good with what Burton brought to his own adaptation to the story of Sweeney Todd, the musical and such. And well, Burton, he's clearly and absolutely no stranger to doing musical stuff. So, yeah,
All right.
because what was brought to Sweeney Todd was fantastic, and yeah, and it's about there being one of Burton's masterpieces because it
It's
is.
one of the few Burton movies to get nominated for Best Picture, so that's an important landmark.
It did get nominated for Best
Yes.
Picture. Really,
Yeah.
I surprisingly I did not realize that.
Uh-huh.
That is.
Johnny Depp got nominated for Best Actor as well.
Wait, who got nominated for Best Actress?
Johnny Depp for Best Actor.
Oh, yeah, okay. That is something. That is something for a movie of Burton's to be nominated for Best Picture.
Pretty sure it's the only one, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, I mean, his other movies, like Ed Wood and I think Batman, they did get nominated for Oscars, but not at the level where it was.
Yeah, not
they
Best
were not-
Picture, yeah.
Yeah, so Sweeney Todd getting that nomination, that's a record. And
That is a really big deal. Yeah,
that's a milestone for Burton.
for sure.
Even though he didn't win, even though Sweeney Todd did not win for Best Picture, still being nominated was something, and it is. And yeah, it was amazing that it was nominated for one Burton film, which being Sweeney Todd, got nominated for Best Picture at the Academy Awards. That's amazing.
Right.
Well, yes, just overall, Tim Burton's Sweeney Todd, it's great. What he brought, fantastic. Just what more do I have to say? And that being my number 7 spot.
Okay, my number 7 slot is going to be, in my opinion, maybe one of the more underrated and overhated movies in Tim Burton's filmography. And that is going to be none other than the 2005 classic Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. So yeah, I was like 14 going on 15 when this movie came out. I was that annoying Hot Topic Tim Burton goth fanboy. I was the perfect age for this. I was the perfect mentality for this. I was hyped as hell when this movie came out, and I'm sick of pretending like this movie didn't fucking deliver for me, because it did. It really did. I'm sorry, but I really like most everything about this movie. I think the production design is so on point, arguably better than the original. I think the score is incredible. People do not talk about how good Danny Elfman's score in this movie is. It's just, it goes so hard. We already had the Deep Roy conversation. I think Deep Roy's performance in this movie is absolutely incredible as well.
One of his top, biggest, and best works.
I think all the adult supporting characters are just delightful. Missy Pyle, there's a reason why I had you put her in the thumbnail, because I love her character design. I love her presence in the movie. She doesn't have a ton of screen time, but she's just such a memorable part of it.
Even like there's one moment where I think like she was like seducing I'd say flirting with Wonka. So,
and once again, every woman's struggle with trying to seduce an asexual man.
Just like when Wonka's talking,
I feel like that's a reoccurring thing with Tim Burton's filmography.
Yeah, because we brought up about that in Pee-wee's Big Adventure, and now this, and well, because I
never realized how much positive ace rep Tim Burton has. Yeah. I genuinely appreciate it.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, because that one scene where right before they get on the boat, because Wonka giving them a fun fact about chocolate, and about falling in love, how he says it, and then Mrs. Beauregard in response, saying, "You don't say." I especially love the. The look that Wonka gives, but I also like noticed, and you would notice this too. We would all know this that Mr. Salt and Mr. TV they have looks as well, just like
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I think all the adult characters in this movie are great. All the kid characters in this movie are great. I think across the damn board, the casting in this movie is borderline perfect. I think Johnny Depp is honestly like people give Johnny Depp in this movie so much shit. I think he's good. I don't think he's perfect. I think he's one of the few elements in this movie that I actually do prefer Gene Wilder to Johnny Depp. I don't prefer a lot in this movie. I don't prefer a lot of elements in the Gene Wilder version over this version. I think the music's better. I think the set pieces are better. I think the Oompa Loompas are better. I think the supporting cast is better. I think the pacing is certainly a lot better. I don't know, man. This is one of those, like, I genuinely don't understand the hate for this thing. I genuinely think, stack it up toe to toe, the only thing that this movie lacks is a performance that's as iconic as Gene Wilder in the original. But I still think Johnny Depp holds his own. I still think he does a good job. I think the important thing with Johnny Depp that I think he does well is he is unsettling. He's he's a man-child, but he's also unsettling and kind of makes you question his motivations. That's what Wonka should be. I will say this much really quick. I absolutely think Johnny Depp's Wonka way more in line with the actual character than Timmy Chalamet's version of Wonka. Just so much closer to the actual spirit of the character than Timothy Chalamet's version.
Right. And
I will say that. Go ahead.
I was going to point this out because you have to hear this, Tiki, because I did not know about this. I think you might get a good kick out of this. Two things, actually, very quick, because I just saw this in the trivia on IMDb page, because about Johnny's performance and what he brought to the character of Wonka, Johnny Depp once stated in an interview that he based his Willy Wonka performance on how he imagined then President George W. Bush would act while stoned.
Oh my God, that's incredible. I love that.
And I also wanted to point this out because the original actress who played Veruca, because she's apparently because when she took her kids to see Tim Burton's Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, and when they got out of the theater, one of her kids said that this was better than the one that she was in.
No, yeah. I'm sorry. I feel like there are people that grew up with this movie. Like, like I said, I was on the I was on the higher age range for like being into something like this when this movie came out. I was already in high school, but I was an annoying hot topic Tim Burton fanboy. So this movie did hit me.
And also because we all be glad that Johnny Depp was Wonka in the film, but I don't know if you knew this very quickly, because did you know whom was originally considered to play Wonka in that?
Not off the top of my head, no.
Well, the two biggest ones, I think one of them would have been good, but still, one of them was Leslie Nielsen.
That. With Leslie Nielsen, it's just hard. I feel like that dude is just a persona. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and this one, you are not going to like this one. It'll probably be Dwayne Johnson.
No, oh God, oh thank God, oh my God.
I knew it.
I thought you were going to say something like Jeffrey Jones, but at least with Jeffrey Jones, you would have the creep factor going for it.
Or what if say Jeff Goldblum?
I honestly think Jeff Goldblum. I mean, we'll see how Jeff Goldblum does as the Wizard of Oz and Wicked. Yeah. But I think Jeff Goldblum could. I don't know. Honestly, with Wonka, you kind of probably at this point need someone a bit younger than Jeff Goldblum.
Yeah.
But
chocolate finds a way.
Oh God.
Okay, so.
All right, so that's my number 7. Kogia says, in my opinion, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory is an underrated film. As a kid, I thought Charlie's grandfather was played by Michael Cow. David Kelly did do a really good job. David Kelly freaking crushes it. Like everyone crushes it in this movie.
Oh
I
yeah.
think that the different Willy Wonka adaptations all had some good elements.
And
What?
I was just gonna ask, like, Tiki, how did you felt on the whole backstory of Wonka? Because Tim Burton added
You
that
know what?
in.
I'm not as big of a fan of the Christopher Lee stuff. I know Dragon adores the Christopher Lee stuff.
I do too. I do too as Dragon. I do too.
I will say I've warmed up to it a lot over the years. It used to be like a big sticking point for me. It's like, oh, we don't need to see Wonka's origin story. It's like seeing the Joker's origin story.
Well,
but no, it's
I did state this in part two because even my mom told me this, that the reason why that was added in Charlie and Chocolate Factory mainly was because Burton had to add in more time and such to the film.
I mean, that makes sense because if he's going by the books, the book is very straightforward and episodic, so that does make sense. Dragon says, I love the Christopher Lee stuff, specifically the payoff.
And
the payoff is great.
And Dragon, if you're listening, I do too. I'm with you there. So.
But yeah, I used to think that the Christopher Lee stuff was like, obviously I'm never going to be like, ew, I don't want to watch Christopher Lee in my movie. I'm never going to be like that,
One of my favorite lines from Wilbur Wonka, just quickly, because when we first see him, and this was the first flashback, and it was Halloween time, and Wilbur Wonka analyzing all the candy and such, and when it came to lollipops, lollipops, what we call cavities on a stick.
Love it. Yeah.
It's Christopher Lee. How he delivers it is fantastic.
Yeah, I've warmed up to him quite a lot. I think he's definitely a big element of the film. I don't think I'm quite as in love with his presence in the movie as you guys are, but I appreciate it. I definitely appreciate it.
And besides, Christopher Lee is a perfect fit in the world of Tim Burton's filmmaking.
I think Christopher Lee is basically like the Nick Fury of Tim Burton's cinematic universe. If that makes sense.
He was before we sadly.
That's a really stupid comparison, but you know what? I'm going to go with it.
And I guess another way to put it, he was one of, like, I guess you could say. I think I make
maybe like a John Ratzenberger would be a more like apt comparison, like a good luck charm.
That's what I was literally going to say. He was like he was like a Lucky Charm in Tim Burton's world of filmmaking.
Right.
Yep.
All right. With that out of the way, Eli, we're almost to the top 5. What is your number 6?
Okay. Well, just very quickly, and to finish up Charlie, because Dragon just commented saying that reunion between father and son has tremendous pathos.
Someone needs to make a music video of Willy Wonka and Wilbur Wonka set to Cat Stevens' father and son.
Okay.
No, I'm just saying that would be. I feel like it would pair up very well together. Anyways,
I'm not quite following. Just I don't know why.
Cat Stevens' father and son. That's the song at the end of Guardians Volume 2.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I agree with Dragon. Yeah, the father and son reunion was really great. And just very quickly, the fact that Wilbur, he was liking what his son was doing. He supported his son, and because he had newspaper articles of his son in his factory hanging on the walls of his dentist office. Yeah, so that was great. Okay, so with that out of the way, and it was perfect to finish off Charlie, because with what Dragon said, so yeah, and what I had to put at that, but and now he says he was proud of his boy. Yes, so he was.
Very much so. Yes.
So I am right on that, and that's what happens in the movie. It's great to see. Dragon and I agree on that.
All
okay.
Right.
Okay. So with that out of the way, okay, let me go back and see again, because I have IMDb up and I have them in the recently viewed section. So yeah, if you have IMDb, you know what I'm talking about. So anyways, number 7, it was Sweeney Todd for me, wasn't it?
Number 7 was Sweeney Todd, yes.
Right, just making sure. Okay, well, It is high. It is high. Yeah. So it's high on my list. Number 6, Corpse Bride.
Okay, okay, nice, nice.
Yeah. So, what I have to say on Corpse Bride, well, we did, you said your part on it, Tiki.
Uh-huh.
Now it's my turn because,
By all means.
of course. So, Corpse
I also
Bride.
feel like the fact that you were younger when this movie came out probably adds to your appreciation for it.
I was only 4 years old when that came out.
Exactly.
Both,
Formative movie years, my friend.
yep, both that and Charlie came out the same year. So,
Those are prime like default to watching movies over and over again a million times years.
and I feel as though I know I talked about this in part 2 when I talked about Charlie, because I feel like that was kind of a record or something. And for the first time ever, 2 movies of Burton's coming out the same year.
It's happened a couple times, but yeah, it doesn't happen often. I remember when that happened though. It was a big deal, especially because both of them were pretty anticipated. Because you with Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, you got like like something that feels like a match made in heaven for him, and then with Corpse Bride, you've got like the return of Tim Burton doing stop motion, which was a huge deal at the time.
Yeah, because I remember now, 2012 was the year that both Frankenweenie and Dark Shadows came out.
Correct.
Yes, so that happened twice.
Not quite as illustrious of a year, but the respect to Frank and Weenie, obviously.
Yeah,
And Dark Shadows is a movie that exists.
which, in my opinion, I have no problem with it. So,
Uh-huh.
and I know, and well, it's nice that you did say that it's not bad. So, well, anyways, so okay,
I
so
honestly wish it was more bad than it is. I just think it's kind of like boringly mediocre.
Boringly what?
Boringly mediocre.
Oh, okay, yeah. I didn't get the mediocre, but okay, so I didn't hear that. But
Mediocre.
yes. Okay, so now I can continue. Number
Yeah.
6.
Sorry.
Number 6 for me, being Corpse Bride. Yeah, because what's not to love about Corpse Bride? Because there's just something about Corpse Bride, and from what I've seen, especially on social media, because people really enjoy Corpse Bride. I mean, as do I. I didn't see Corpse Bride like when it first came out, like not at a young age. I don't know why. Maybe it was just one of those movies that just didn't get around to, and never got a DVD copy of it. But I did get a DVD copy of it at some
I mean,
point.
you certainly weren't old enough to appreciate like the hype of like, oh my god, he's making another stop motion movie.
That's true. So, but I mean, Charlie, I had seen, of course, and yeah, but on Corpse Bride, because what Corpse Bride had to offer, and with its story, and actually because I think it is loosely based off of a book, because it wouldn't feel right to not mention him, because it's thanks to him that he approached and presented Burton with this, like, I think 19th century book or something, and it would lead to an idea to, well, do the come up with a story, and which would be Corpse Bride, and whom is responsible, not just Burton, but whom is also responsible for bringing Corpse Bride to life and for it to exist is the late Joe Ranft, because he presented Tim Burton with a 19th century book, and from there on, because it would lead to doing Corpse Bride, Joe would be producer, but sadly, as we all know, Joe Ranft, he would sadly pass away in a car accident. This and Cars would be his last 2 big projects that he would do, and they'd be dedicated to him. And because it's nice that Joe had been friends with Burton, and of course they knew each other at Cal Arts, and especially when they were part of Disney. And well, and Joe Ranft, he had worked with Burton a couple of times, like Nightmare Before Christmas and James and the Giant Peach, and then of course Corpse Bride. Yeah, just with what goes on in Corpse Bride, and just good animation to it, and with really great music and songs from Danny Elfman, and with the cast of characters and of course the voice acting. And by the way, because Corpse Bride being the first animated film for Johnny Depp, um, And what he brought to the voice performance of Victor was good, and of course that goes for everybody else. Like
I think
Helen
Johnny Depp only gets better with like the more voice acting he does, though, because like if you look at his performance as Victor, it's fine. If you look at his performance as Rango, like he's in an entirely different level of voice acting in that movie.
Dragon just commented this. It's fitting Joe Ranft also had a lovely cameo in Coraline. That
Oh
being
yeah,
who?
definitely.
Yeah, both Ranft brothers, they had cameos. So, yeah, because Joe Ranft also working with Henry Selick. So yeah, clearly because Henry Selick was responsible for the Joe Ranft and the Ranft brothers cameos in Coraline. But anyway, so you know what? I kind of wish that it's a shame because it seemed like you think he would have because knowing Joe, it's it's a shame and just surprising to see he didn't like do additional voices in Corpse Bride. You would think because he would, but guess he didn't get to. I don't know, but yeah, but overall, yeah, because he was producer. So yeah, yeah, and just like again, like with what goes on in Corpse Bride and some scary moments, nothing gruesome and such, but also you know, with the character of Emily, which Dragon did comment saying that Emily has a wonderful design, which I agree on that. You know what? Surprisingly, this movie managed to have at least one dead person slash a corpse look very beautiful, and that of course being Emily. And actually, because we don't hear her actual name until the very end and the climax of the film, because
I always forget that we never hear her name until the end.
yeah, because Richard E. Grant's character, who of course, like I guess you could say like he's kind of like in that level of that kind of villain, like what Gaston is in Beauty and the Beast, and
I mean,
yeah,
obviously not nearly as memorable, but yeah, he's kind of in that mold.
yeah, there you go.
I kind of feel the same way about like the villain from Curse of the Were-Rabbit. Like he's just kind of like less memorable Gaston. That's about it.
Yeah. Victor Cordemer. So yeah, but I mean, I think he was pretty good. And
Dragon says it is a great send off from Michael Gow. Absolutely, absolutely.
yeah, well, I mean, Michael Goff was even
Goff.
after
I'm sorry. I can never remember if it's Goff or Gow.
well, he was still alive even after Corpse Bride came out because he passed like I think around 2010 and 11. And as I did mention, he his last film, one of his last films, and which being a Tim Burton film, which was voicing the Dodo in Alice in Wonderland. So again, he was still alive even after Corpse Bride came out. So, but Michael Goff voicing that one skeleton, that was pretty good. And yeah, just all the interesting like dead slash corpses that we see in this movie. I think one of my top favorites would have to, and he sings one of my favorite songs from Corpse Bride. Um, the one skeleton with the bowler hat and the one eye.
I think his name is Bojangles.
Okay, yeah.
Or Bone Jangles.
Yeah, Bean. He was voiced by Danny Elf. He was voiced and sung by Danny Elfman. That's his.
Essentially, his character I've always viewed as like a spiritual successor to Jack Skellington. Essentially,
and I was also about to say, this being his second skeleton character that he's sung and voiced. So, a tragic tale of romance and passion and a murder most foul. Yeah. So Remains of the Dead is probably one of my favorite songs. And God, there are parts of it that are so catchy, especially with the singing. And because it's an important song because it gives us some background and backstory on the titled character and what happened to to her lover and such. And Dragon just commented, two comments because I meant to mention this one. Gaston with a toupee, and then now he just said Bone Jangles is a nod to. Oh, I didn't know that. Bone Jangles was a nod to Sammy Davis Jr.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
I didn't quite realize that. Huh. I know who Sammy Davis Jr. is, but I didn't realize and think of that. But until now, thank you, Dragon. Um, so, like I said, Remains of the Dead being an important song to A Corpse Bride. And, well, because back then, because obviously this happened in reality, this did happen in reality, because an arranged marriage and such, and in this case, yeah, because in Corpse Bride for both Victor and Victoria. But sure enough, and as the film proceeds, Victor comes to realize and see that, yeah, he has fallen in love. He really has fallen in love with Victoria. And wanting to get back to her and, well, trying not to break Emily's heart, which he does, but not really intentionally. And that great scene where they're, piano duet, and
Probably my favorite scene in the movie.
yeah, I think it's one of the I think it's obvious it's one of the memorable parts of that film. So, um, also, I do know this because speaking of like Sammy Davis Jr. and Bone Jangles, the this is the maggot character, yeah, that's attached to Emily. He was based off of Peter Lorre. I know that. So yeah, because he had that voice. That's it's so obvious. So, anyways, so I know that. Yeah, just like from like the maggot character to the spiders. Yeah, they're and well because yeah, they get a song number one or two, and also yeah, Christopher Lee he voiced that priest, and having Deep Roy as well. Albert Finney, which yeah, I know I said this that Albert Finney because he was originally considered for Grandpa Joe, but didn't get it because well, David Kelly stepped in when Burton cast him, and to make things up for Albert, he gave him the voice role of Victoria's father. And you know what? Because knowing Albert Finney, and because he had worked with Burton before in Big Fish, he was good in this, definitely.
We will definitely get to Albert Finney. We will have praise for Albert Finney more as
Oh,
this podcast goes on.
indeed we shall. Yeah, yeah, just like it's just overall because from the songs, some great memorable sequences, and to the twists and shocking reveals. Well, of course, have to mention it that Richard E. Grant's character turned out to be the original love interest of Emily, and just left her for dead. And
Uh-huh.
well, how he drank well because like yeah he like I think yeah Victor was supposed to drink it, but then he accidentally drank it. Can a heart still break when once it stopped beating? And he drank it, and now he was one of them. And they just like knowing what probably was going to happen, like he just met his ultimate demise in the underworld. But anyways, and the ending was very sweet and emotional, and because Emily always like because at times like staring at the moon, and then like turning into butterflies, and just yeah, it had a great ending to it. Just yeah, overall, Corpse Bride, it's definitely one of Tim Burton's top memorable and great films that he has done. And you know what? Because this was the first stop motion film where he did actually direct, even though, because well, there was a co-director to this. Well, because Burton, he was doing Charlie and the Chocolate Factory as well, so that's understandable. Yeah, just overall, Corpse Bride, it's great. It's really good. Yeah, just what more do I have to say? And that being my number 6 spot.
All right. Okay, so for my number 6 is going to go by pretty quick because we've already addressed it. I don't honestly have a ton of stuff to add. But my number 6 is going to be Sweeney Todd. Yeah, right outside of the top 5. I think this is one of the best movies that Tim Burton has made. Like it's like to get into that kind of distinction that Dragon and I like to do with Spielberg. Sweeney Todd is a great movie that's directed by Tim Burton.
Yes.
It is not one of the best Tim Burton movies, if that makes sense, because I do feel like by kind of going into that more sort of like it's one of the more gritty and realistic movies that Tim Burton's ever made, which is weird considering it's a fucking musical, you know? I don't know. I really like it a lot, though. I do think that Helena Bonham Carter, Johnny Depp, performance wise, they absolutely have the chops. I think they have when they're acting, they do a really great job. And honestly, when she's singing, I think Helena Bonham Carter, like she's certainly like you got to keep in mind, like Mrs. Lovett, she comes from like a long line of like incredible actresses who have done it. Like I believe one of the original Mrs. Lovetts was actually Angela Lansbury. So yeah, I think Helena Bonham Carter does a good job. No Angela Lansbury, but who is? I agree that I think the supporting cast really kind of sells it. I think Timothy Spall, Alan Rickman, just great villain duo right there. Sacha Baron Cohen, very memorable for his brief part. I think the twists, as we already established, just hit really well. I think Burton's sensibilities really kind of come into play, especially in the third act, with just how much crazy shit is hitting the fan from the plot. The one musical sequence you didn't bring up that I want to bring up, that I think really does add a lot to the movie is By the Sea. I think the production design in that number in particular is just absolutely immaculate. I love it.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But like I said, and sadly, not to be intentional about this, because aside from Pretty Women, the other songs of Sweeney Todd.
No, Eli, I actually do agree. And honestly, I agree with you as far as like even just Sweeney Todd in general. It's not a show about earworms. It's a very like it's almost kind of like an anti-Broadway musical as far as like it's aggressively weird and dark, and the songs don't really have hooks in them. It's honestly a challenging musical to bring to film, because if you think about it, like one of the big appeals of doing, I feel like Sweeney Todd and Cabaret, follow me on this, because this is going to be a little bit of like a musical theater deep dive. So Cabaret a lot of it takes place in the Kit Kat nightclub.
Yeah.
And I feel like you can do that on stage so much more immersively than you can do it in a movie. Because the best cabaret performances just have the whole damn theater just be the Kit Kat nightclub. And I feel like the same thing can apply to Sweeney Todd. The best Sweeney Todd performances, if you walk into that theater, you are in the meat pie shop. You know what I mean? Like you are in that pie shop. And you can't really get that kind of immersiveness from a movie. But I think it does a great job. I think this is certainly one of the most ambitious Tim Burton movies there's ever been. The Best Picture nomination definitely adds credit to that. I'm not sure. Did he? I want to look up see if he got nominated for Best Director. I don't think he did, but just to be sure. So yeah, I definitely think that there's a lot to love about this movie. Just barely out of the top 5. If I'm being completely honest with you, I actually think that I might like this one, like subjectively, a bit more. Oh, Eli, I have bad news.
Well, I was gonna get to looking at it on its IMDb page, but go ahead.
Well, this actually did not. Apparently, this didn't get nominated for Best Picture.
Yeah,
I'm glad I checked.
See, because like I said, I did.
I know for a fact it must have been nominated for a Golden Globe for Best Musical or Comedy. It must have been. I know for a fact. But yeah, Best Actor was probably the biggest. I'm actually surprised it only got 3 nominations.
And it only won 1 Oscar, and that being for Best Achievement in Art Direction.
Production design, yeah.
See, because that is something that, because almost in every film of Burton's, the art direction and so on, it's always fantastic.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, and also like
actually, I would say that Sweeney Todd is probably one of the most restrained outside of like stuff like Beyond the Sea. Yeah.
Beyond the Sea? What?
Or I'm sorry, By the Sea. By the Sea.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
You know what? I was actually coincidentally I was thinking of Beyond the Sea earlier this evening.
All right, so yeah, that's my pick for number 6. Let's move into our top 5, baby.
Yeah.
Top 5.
Mm-hmm.
All right, you're number 5, Eli. What do you got?
Okay, well, right before I get to my number 5, because to address some of the comments, like, yeah, I think they should be heard. Like, we have Dan Sheehan, I think that's how you say the last name. He's in the comments. He said the comments that he left is by saying, "I like chicken." Tim Burton wrecked Batman, which I disagree. I'm sorry, that's your opinion. That's your opinion, Dan. And Dan also commented saying Alfred Finney, Daddy Warbucks was great. Okay.
Wasn't Daddy Warbucks John Goodman?
That's one movie I really don't know of.
I'm pretty sure Daddy Warbucks was John Goodman, Dan Sheehan. I'm pretty sure that was John Goodman. Or wait, no, I'm sorry. I'm thinking of freaking Princess and the Frog. I'm sorry. I'm thinking of freaking the
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No, that was John Goodman. That was John Goodman did voice him, so Big Daddy.
Mm-hmm. No, but that wasn't Daddy Warbucks though. Daddy Warbucks is from Annie.
Oh,
I'm completely different daddy. All right, anyways.
Yeah. Dan is right because Albert Finney did play him in the 1982 Annie film. Which I believe it might be was the one from 1982. Was that Disney's? Because Disney did do an Annie. Did their own
I'm not entirely sure, unfortunately.
Well, I'm just saying because I do know that Disney did do their own adaptation of Annie. So
yeah, I just don't know if that was it. I'm sorry.
Okay. Also, the comments that Dragon had left, he said Burton does bring out the best in Depp. That is very true. And Dragon also commented saying #fun with Finney. And the second to last one he left, maybe this was on Corpse Bride when we were talking about Corpse Bride. Well, that goes for me. He says a classic Loki move if I've ever saw one. I don't know what that's I don't know. Dragon, you're gonna have to let me know. You're gonna have to tell us like what you mean by that and what's in Corpse Bride and why you said that. But I don't know. And he just now commented saying, "Tiki, you're embarrassing us with
Dragon, I'm freaking sorry." All right.
You're not embarrassed. Well, I'm not. I'm okay with that. So, okay. I mean, Dragon, I'm okay. So over Tiki. So, okay. So number six was Sweeney Todd for me, wasn't it?
Yes.
Okay.
No, number 7 was Sweeney Todd.
For you?
Number 6 was Sweeney Todd for me, not for you.
Oh. Okay, I'm just checking. Number 10, 9, 8. Okay, number 7 was, it was, Sweeney Todd was my number 7. So, and Corpse Bride was number 6. I almost, didn't realize. Okay, so number 6 was Corpse Bride for me. So, what was your number 6 again?
Sweeney Todd.
Okay, good. As I completely forgot, and I had to make sure. So, okay, with that problem solved there, number 5 for me, because this is where the juicy stuff happens, and we're really getting there. Good stuff. And this one, well, it is in the number 5. It's in the top 5 spot, so it is. I mean, with the top 5 great films and masterpieces of Burton's, I think. Is that where we're at? With the top 5, the masterpieces?
Yeah, more or less. My number 5 has always been a film that I've kind of struggled with Burton, but we'll get there.
Well, I hope it's not the same one for me. That's for my number 5
My number
because
5 is the Tim Burton movie that I've always respected more than outwardly loved. I will say that.
okay, well, for my number 5, Beetlejuice.
Oh, really? Oh, damn. All the way at number 5. Okay. No, that's Beetlejuice is a little higher for me.
I mean, this one being quite like again,
I
as I
already
said.
spoiled that Beetlejuice isn't my number 1, but yeah, it's a little higher.
Okay, well, yeah, again, because not for my top 10 to 1 wasn't that hard, but yeah, still not quite easy. So,
Oh,
but definitely like, and just like what I said early on, like for my own like say top list, I would put Beetlejuice higher, but yeah, but I mean technically for it being number 5 in this, it's technically high. It is, but anyway, so
oh yeah, if it's in the top 5, I think that's very respectable. Yeah.
yeah, because I think that, and the ones that I put for like say to 4 to 1, they are definitely some ones that definitely are high and for being really good masterpieces of Burton's. But anyway, so well of course and Beetlejuice being one of them. But anyway, so what I have to say on Beetlejuice. So well,
We definitely have at least 3 of the same top 5. I'll say that much, looking at our lists.
and when we get to like say number 2, we'll know what will be for number 1 for me and you. But anyway, so okay, so what I have to say on Beetlejuice, because yeah, well, because after Burton, he found success with Pee Wee's Big Adventure. Well, a couple of years later, well, especially because after he was also doing some TV stuff. Well, he would find himself doing another movie, which this too. Well, I mean, Pee Wee's Big Adventure did kick Burton into high gear with his directing career and such, filmmaking. But definitely, like Beetlejuice really made a big time for him.
Mhm.
Yeah, just what can you say about Beetlejuice? Because it's a memorable and classic film of Burton's, and with what goes on in it, unlike anything, especially at that time, what people had seen, and unlike anything, just yeah, because with the story and the cast of characters, the direction of this film, and the style and how it looks. Of course, Tim Burton style, and with great casting. Of course, Michael Keaton playing the title character. This I would like to point out because this is kind of a headache, and maybe you would know about this too, Tiki, and I know Dragon would too. Have you ever noticed that the Beetlejuice's name is sometimes spelled differently?
I have noticed it. Yeah, sometimes they spell it with a G.
Yeah, why? What's with that? Is there a reason?
I think maybe it's like stylistically supposed to like look like Beetle Geist, like I don't know though. I really don't know.
Uh, why can't they just stick with how it's spelled in the.
Consistency, people.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. Anyways, so yeah, so yeah, again, just Michael Keaton, him playing the titled character, and what he brings to the performance of Beetlejuice, just so fantastic. And just what is there? Because being over the top, especially, but in a good way, and to think because he would do this just a year before he would play a serious role, which being Batman, and yeah, it really shows that he can play both hilarious, over the top, and also play serious stuff. He's quite good at that. And just having some memorable lines and quotes, and yeah, and also because with the other cast of characters from Catherine O'Hara, what's him face, the voice of the mayor from how what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I don't know his name off the top of my head, but yeah, I know who you're
Yeah,
talking
of
about.
course he was good too, and say what you will, but still, Jeffrey Jones. Because he was good in he was good in Beetlejuice, and also of course another great memorable role aside from Michael Keaton, young Winona Ryder as Lida. Yeah, she was great in
Lydia.
that. Yeah, Thank you, Lydia. She was great in that too. And of course, can't forget to mention Alec Baldwin and Gina Davis. Their roles and them too have been important and big important characters in the film, and yeah, because they were good as well. And with how the undead characters look in this, and with some scary practical effects, and with the stop motion and the sandworm, and the music and score by Danny Elfman, and the use of songs of Harry Belafonte, most notably, of course, Banana Boat, and yeah, just the Banana Boat sequence, so memorable, and with the shrimp hands, yeah, and a bit of intenseful stuff happening, and yeah, technically, because even though Beetlejuice, he's just being a goofball, but he's kind of an antagonist in this movie, and yeah, just with the model and how being in the model and shrinking and such, and of course with the Beetlejuice snake, yeah, just so many great stuff. Just overall, just everything about Beetlejuice, and to me, so good. Like I said, it's a memorable and great film of Burton's, one of his top masterpieces. Um, Oh, thank you, Dragon. Yeah, Glenn Shaddix. Yeah, that's his name. And yes, Dragon, I agree, Dragon. Well, actually, oh yeah, because Dragon also says I like Hannibal Lecter. Hannibal Lecter Keaton um, is instantly has 17 minutes. Wow, I didn't quite realize that 17 minutes of screen time. Jeez. Well, let's assume that when Beetlejuice by the time of with Beetlejuice, there will be more of the ghost with the most. And also, Dragon also says, "Love me some Gina Davis." Well, I guess that's you have a crush on Gina Davis, Dragon. Are we left to assume? Oh well. Um, don't be shy to admit. Anyways, yeah, just overall, the first Beetlejuice film. It's so good, and we all look forward to when Beetlejuice comes out. Yeah, and I know that goes for me, and maybe for everybody else, rewatching Beetlejuice right before Beetlejuice comes out, and yeah, just overall, the first Beetlejuice film is fantastic, and for it being my number 5 spot.
All right. Okay. Yeah. So for my number 5, again, I want to emphasize this has always kind of been one of the Burton movies that I've had the hardest time with because
Oh boy.
I acknowledge that it's a classic. I acknowledge that it's got some killer performances in it. I acknowledge that it is probably objectively one of his best films. But for me, it's wonderful, but I still don't necessarily think I would rank it as a masterpiece. And that's going to be Ed Wood. And here's the thing with Ed Wood. I feel like Ed Wood is great. It's a great movie. It's awesome. I just think I'm too much of a stickler for the biopic genre. And when I think of a movie like Ed Wood, it's I feel like this movie, all the parts of it are great, but I feel like here's the thing, my top 4 Burton movies, I feel like every one of my top 4 is a classic, just a stone cold, absolute classic, no doubt about it. And Ed Wood is there as well. I just feel like there's literally nothing I would change with any of my other 4. With this one, the only thing is, I do think that as awesome as Martin Landau is, and he's great, I think the movie gets a little bit lost in the weeds where it's is the movie more about Ed Wood's relationship with Bela Lugosi, or is it more about Ed Wood as a filmmaker? Is it more about his awkward love life? And I do say awkward again. Hello, single women trying to hit on I don't want to call Ed Wood asexual because he certainly wasn't asexual, but he was definitely a different kind of sexual.
Transvestite.
Well, yes, let's, yeah.
Kind of, yeah.
I mean, thank you for not saying the harsher version of that language, but yeah.
Lucky me.
No, you see what I'm saying though? It's like I respect the hell out of this movie. I don't necessarily like the love story, and I kind of wish there was a more even balance between the stuff where it's like Ed Wood kind of like befriending and bonding with Bela Lugosi, and then the other side of like the filmmaking stuff and making Plan 9. I feel like just as a plot, it's a little bit all over the place, much like Ed Wood himself. And I do totally acknowledge that the movie partially is like trying to be an Ed Wood movie in some extent. So again, I feel like this is one of those where it's never going to be my favorite Burton movie, but it is solidly in the top 5. I respect the hell out of it. Honestly, objectively, it might be like in the top 3, but there's just a few more that I'm just a little bit more personally attached to at this point. So yeah, this was honestly always going to be one that I struggled with, and that I like. Generally, I don't think that unless I put it at number 1, people were going to be happy with where I put it. Honestly, I feel like a lot of people have this at number 1. Maybe you do as well. We'll see. We'll see.
You'll know. You'll know.
Oh, you'll know. You'll know. I don't know.
You'll know, Tiki, when we get there.
All right.
Yeah. Okay. So.
Okay. Let's see. Hold on. Let me.
Yeah. Dragon has left a couple of more comments.
Oh dear. Is he mad at me?
Let me read them. I'll read them. So. He doesn't. No, it doesn't. No, I can tell. I would know, of course, but no, there's no indication that he's mad at you. But he says this, like when I was talking about Beetlejuice, he said this. Well, because in response to what I was saying directly to him, well, she's a very good actress, but also, yeah, she's attractive. Gina Davis, referring to. He also, yeah, because Dragon points this out about you. Tiki, he liked women. He just also liked what they wore.
I mean, fair enough.
Yeah, because he likes to wear women's clothing. That's it. So,
and honestly, this movie does have some pretty progressive, like, and I don't even want to call him trans because I don't necessarily think he was trans, because he didn't necessarily have the mentality of like he was a woman. Like you said, he just enjoyed the clothing element of it. But yeah.
Yeah,
but good representation nonetheless, whatever you want to call it. Anyway,
because for Eddie, because he just felt close to women and putting on their clothing. That's the thing. And Dragon also says, "Hey, I'm just thrilled Ed Wood made the top 5 on your list."
All right, yeah.
Well, same for me, Dragon, because it is in my top 5. But wait till you see where Ed Wood is in my list. Again. By number 3 and 2, you'll get a good idea where it'll be at. So, anyways, Dragon also says, "I think Ed Wood might be Burton's best film, along with one other." Yes, I agree on that. Definitely, that's a fact. Okay, so, okay, so what now?
I'm sorry. Let's go to your number 4.
Yeah, okay, so now at number 4. Here we go. Number 4. Well, it is in the top 5, and by the top 5, like, masterpieces of Burton. So, my number 4, Edward Scissorhands.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Interesting. Ooh, spicy.
Yep. A little spicy. Why spicy to you?
Oh, you'll see.
We're okay, getting very close to that one for you. Anyway, so for me, Edward Scissorhands, well, there's no doubt, and it is a fact, that Edward Scissorhands is one of Tim Burton's top masterpieces, both for him and Danny Elfman, because they both considered Edward Scissorhands as like one of their favorites. Well, I mean, not just that, but another one that Burton cites as his other favorite film that he's directed. And just Dragon now says every barber's favorite movie. If that episode of Seinfeld is any indication, well, I mean, I've not watched Seinfeld. Maybe I probably may have I've seen chunks of it, but I'm just anyways. So, well, just for you.
I'm in the same boat. I don't really know what he's talking about, but I'm sure it's a funny episode.
Well, because obviously Dragon has watched Seinfeld. So.
Oh, Dragon loves Seinfeld. Yeah, I've seen like a handful of episodes. I'm more of a Curb guy.
Yeah, even like there's one specific. I recall there's one specific season of Seinfeld that Dragon recommended to you. So yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, Kogios gets it because he says it's a very funny episode. So he knows what Dragon's talking about. All right, so okay, back to what I was saying about Edward Scissorhands. What Edward Scissorhands has to offer, with its story, its characters, the emotional stuff. Let me tell you, because Edward Scissorhands is for sure a heartbreaking film, and with what goes on with the title character, of course, we obviously have to acknowledge Vincent Price and his performance as the inventor. And well, because the inventor, sadly...
It's kind of surreal that this is the only time Vincent Price popped up in like a mainstream Tim Burton like feature film.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, well, that was the only Tim Burton feature film that Vincent Price was in. Because, well, other like Tim Burton materials that Price was in, well, because the short film Vincent... He did an introduction to in Hansel and Gretel, which it's strange because it's not on YouTube. The Hansel and Gretel film itself is on YouTube entirely, but not the introduction. But it did make its way in the Tim Burton exhibit. Anyways, and there was like a little a little documentary or something with Burton and Vincent Price. So yeah. So yeah, because Edward Scissorhands being the only Tim Burton feature film to have Vincent Price, and just the character of the inventor, tragically, because he did not get to finish and complete his creation, which of course being Edward Scissorhands, was this close to giving him say human hands, but did not, because well, the inventor's tragically dying, and and Edward Scissorhands still living in that castle after all those years. And when he's discovered, and then of course...
It's almost kind of like, when you think about it, it's almost kind of like, I feel like this movie's almost like a predecessor to something like AI in regards to just how deeply tragic it is.
Yeah. And Dragon also comments, the scenes with Vincent Price are some of the finest scenes Burton...
Absolutely agree. Absolutely hard agree.
Way ahead of you too. And he also says, that hands scene is so poetic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I know what he's talking about, yeah. So like I said, Edward Scissorhands being discovered, he's brought into this colorful neighborhood, which, you know what, because you realize that Edward Scissorhands is probably the only Burton film where there's some color to it, just in that neighborhood. But it kind of still has some the tone of the color just about closely to Burtonish tone of colors. But anyway, so just great casting again. Johnny Depp, who plays the title character, Winona Ryder, and this being her second Tim Burton film, the late Alan Arkin, and what's her face, the mother of Winona Ryder's character, you know who I'm talking about, and who discovers Edward Scissorhands. She was good too. And freaking Anthony Michael Hall, because God, his character just being just pardon my French, a complete dickhead in this, and just God. But you know what? He writes
Diane
so.
Wiest.
What's that?
Diane Wiest is the lady we're thinking of.
Thank you. Yeah. So as I was saying about Anthony Michael Hall's character, because how he rightfully so meets his demise, and Burton, well, I'm sorry, Edward Scissorhands, he rightfully so, like he rightfully so did exactly what, because murdering Anthony Michael Hall's character, and it's also just sad that they just didn't like everybody who warmed up to Edward Scissorhands, especially because, well, one of the best things for Edward, well, just being a good barber and such, and the hairstyles that Edward brought to the neighbors, but then just later on the film, and even though because nothing intentional happened and nothing like Edward didn't really do anything, just for the neighbors to just like turn against him and just
Right.
for no reason.
It's
That's
very Frankenstein, as Dragon kind of points out. It's Frankenstein in suburbia.
it is. Yeah, good
Mhm.
point. There's
I also
also
love
like
at the beginning when the neighbors are like just so freaking gossipy about the situation and like literally following them around like a freaking pack of jackals or something.
yep. Also, there's a bit of like yes, like some Frankenstein vibes that are in this, but don't you think so too? I mean, this goes for you and Dragon. Like a bit of like Beauty and the Beast stuff in it.
A little bit, a little bit. Yeah, I could see Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah, yeah, clearly. So,
Mhm.
well, I mean, it's like Edward is the Beast, Winona Ryder's character is the Beauty, and well, Anthony Michael Hall, his character being the Gaston kind of character, I guess. So, best way to put it. But yeah, and also like Winona Ryder, because more on her, yeah, and just it's amazing that we see an older version of her and well telling the story to her grandchild, and she hadn't seen Edward ever since, and would rather have Edward remember her when she was young and so on. And also those moments where Edward is making those ice sculptures, Winona Ryder dancing and feeling like it's like snow and such, and and the beautiful music and score done by Danny Elfman in this, fantastic. And
Maybe Danny Elfman's all-time best score. Maybe
yeah,
it's hard to beat. It's hard to beat.
it's up there. It's up there pretty much. And as I stated, for both Burton and Elfman, they consider Edward Scissorhands their favorite
Mhm.
project that they've done. Yeah, so yeah, just like the and again just the emotional stuff, the climax, the drama, and at times there are some funny moments. Even like funny moments from the neighbors, especially
I
like
mean,
the
I do
one.
think this movie does kind of blend the lighthearted stuff with the tragedy really well. Like I mentioned the tone thing and how sometimes it is an issue for me, but I think in spite of this movie having a lot of different tonal shifts, I think it works. I think it all flows together pretty naturally.
Yeah. Oh, and Dragon commented this in response to what I said a little earlier because of the color of the neighborhood and such. Because yeah, Dragon says it very well that the color theory is the darkness, like Edward and his home. Were good where the postal and color the neighbors harbored the true darkness of humanity. Hmm.
Mhm.
And he also said this just now. It's bittersweet that the memory we end on is right before it all came crashing down, like Edward and his father with the gift of the hands.
Oh
Similar
yeah.
music during both scenes as well. Very
All right.
true. And that's what's amazing. That's what's amazing and what happens in this movie. Yeah, just overall, Edward Scissorhands, without a doubt, definitely being one of Tim Burton's top best masterpieces that he's done.
Mhm.
What more do I have to say? Just yeah, and that being my number 4 spot.
All right.
Hmm.
Okay, my number 4, it's going to go by pretty quickly because once again we already covered it. It's going to be Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Um,
Ah,
and honestly, I'm going to be dead ass completely honest with you. This movie gets into my top 5 because of nostalgia, baby. Like, look,
true.
it's Like, is it better than something like a Sweeney Todd or an Ed Wood? Probably not as an actual movie. But man, I have so much nostalgia for this. There's so many memorable set pieces here. You didn't really talk about Francis all that much, and I think Francis is just such a freaking perfect foil for Pee-wee. Like a bully who's just as much of a man-child as Pee-wee is. I think that's such a genius idea for a villain in the Pee-wee universe.
Yeah, Francis. Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't say anything about Francis. But
it's all good. It's all good. It gives
I
me some stuff to talk about.
I agree. Yeah, Francis was a memorable character in this, and because Pee-wee, and it's understandable, Pee-wee immediately assumes that Francis had stole his bike, and that sequence where he's fighting Francis in the giant...
the bathtub scene, dude. Genuinely, it might be one of the most intense things that Tim Burton has ever directed. I say that unironically.
You know what else?
Just the look of absolute fucking like Terminator levels of focus and hatred on Paul Rubin's face in that scene.
That's really the biggest thing where we see Pee-wee just pissed off. Also, an intenseful... How did you say it again about the bathtub sequence? It was what?
Just very intense.
Okay, yeah. So something else that was intenseful, but one thing that happens, the sequence where Pee-wee is saving the animals in the pet store. One moment that happens that, it was intense for Paul himself. That being, he had to carry, for saving the animals out of the pet store, and need I say reptiles that he saves are the snakes. Paul was he was terrified of snakes, but he trusted Burton with this. And that's nice. That's great to see that. Yeah, he did trust Burton, and that was very brave of Paul to do that. And he was, I think that was real. Pee-wee screaming, that was really Paul, screaming and holding those snakes. Even those snakes, the snakes that Paul was carrying out, right, they were harmless snakes. So I think that too, where he's carrying out the snakes, that was intenseful and for Paul. So.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know. I don't have much to add other than the fact that I truly think that that every single scene in this movie is some level of iconic and quotable. Obviously you've got the large Marge scene, you've got the dinosaurs,
running around in the Warner Brothers backlot.
The Alamo stuff still absolutely cracks me up. There's no basement at the Alamo.
Yeah, I completely forgot to mention the Alamo.
I don't know. The supporting characters in this movie all just really lend them. I think this movie's a really interesting in between where it's kind of like Pee-wee Herman, not set in the Pee-wee's Big Adventure universe, or I'm sorry, not set in the Pee-wee's Playhouse universe, but still there's enough of a bizarro kind of thing going on where this isn't exactly the real world either, and I think that's really fun. It's an interesting in between.
Yeah.
Okay, Dragon says, I love the ending of I don't need to see it, Dottie. I lived it.
And the other comments that Dragon left, he said about Pee-wee's Big Adventure, the Burton film that started it all and paved the way for a dark Batman on film, the Pee-wee Herman film. And he also said, I still wish someone would do a recut of Deadpool, looking for Francis with Pee-wee and Francis in the tub.
Yes, absolutely.
And he also said, and this was obviously directly because when I was talking about Pee-wee carrying the snakes, he said, like Indy, even Pee-wee Herman fears snakes.
I mean, who doesn't? Who doesn't fear snakes? At least a little bit.
Yeah, right. And Dragon also says, I also kind of referenced in Toy Story 2 with Rex and the Buzz game.
A little bit, yeah.
Of what was it?
The line, I think. I don't need to see it, Buzz. I lived it.
Oh, yeah, because Pee Wee not wanting to see the movie based off of his adventure because he lived it. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
okay. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, Rex directly said that to Ham when Ham was trying to play the Buzz Lightyear game. So
Right.
yeah.
Okay. So yeah, that's my number 4, and I will say that as we get into my top 3, that's truly where the masterpieces are. I think Pee-wee's Big Adventure is close to being a masterpiece. It's absolutely like a titan in the road trip comedy genre. Like it's one of the best when it comes to those movies. But the top 3 for me are just absolutely just the cream of the crop, the true masterpieces in Burton's catalog, for me personally. All right. So with that in mind, Eli, let me just go ahead and switch the banner here.
Yep.
What is your number 3?
Well, still, and as of this stream, sadly, I still haven't seen it yet. But I know for a fact, even though I've not seen this yet.
Oh, you need to watch it, dude.
Oh, you know what number 3 is?
I'm assuming if you're saying you still haven't seen it, I'm assuming I know what it is.
Number 3 for me, Big Fish.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, you need to watch this movie, bro.
I know I have to. I had a couple of other friends of mine telling me that I need to watch Big Fish.
Mm-hmm.
I know, but hey, it's one of those things, and I'm not the only one where, hey, movies that you sometimes don't get around to. So even if it's like really good ones like Big Fish. But
This is one of
anyways.
those movies that makes me cry every time, every goddamn time. It doesn't matter. I will cry at the ending of this movie.
Yeah, I do recall knowing that Big Fish, and for those that have watched the movie and the movie reactions to this, emotional, quite emotional. So this is going to be quick, and again, because even though I've not seen it yet, I won't have that much to say, but I know you will, Tiki, because I know for a fact that Big Fish is definitely up there. It's one of Tim Burton's top masterpieces, and yeah, and well, Big Fish is another movie adaptation of a book. So, what Burton brought to the movie adaptation of Big Fish, no doubt, really good. And with the casting, and especially, of course, the main star, Ewan McGregor, and a lot of other familiar faces like Helena Bonham Carter. There's also Steve Buscemi,
This
Albert.
was my first exposure to Steve Buscemi, and it's such a weird first exposure to Steve Buscemi.
Not even Monsters Inc. or Big Lebowski.
I mean, definitely I saw Monster. Definitely not Big Lebowski. I didn't watch that until after high school. But Monsters Inc. I'm sure I saw it before Big Fish, but I did not know it was him. It's like, I mean, with Steve Buscemi, it's part of the appeal is that face. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, he's got a great voice, and especially for voice
No, he's
acting.
got a great voice, but like you do not forget that face once you see it on screen.
Nope, not at all. Also, Missy Pyle being in there, Danny
Mhm.
DeVito, and there being a
Playing
circus.
another ringmaster.
Yep. And the next Burton film that he would find himself in, he would play yet again another ringmaster.
Mhm.
And the giant of this movie, the late. Let me look it up. Let me do it myself.
It's Matthew something.
Matthew McGrory.
Matthew McGrory, I think. Yeah, Matthew McGrory.
Yeah, who plays Carl the Giant. Which, by the way, Tiki requested for me to put Carl the Giant in the thumbnails.
Because Carl the Giant is like out of all the Tim Burton characters, he might be the one I relate to the most.
True, I can see that. Yeah, I can understand that. Also, yeah, the late Robert Gulliam, if I'm saying his last name right, the voice of Rafiki. Because yeah, I almost forgot that knowing that he's in this too. Um, Alison Lohman being in this too. Billy Crudup. Yeah. Well, yeah, because both Billy, Albert, and Ewan, they play they play the same character. Will, Ed Blue. Well, actually, no, I'm sorry. Billy plays Will Bloom,
Yeah,
while Albert and Ewan play different versions of Ed Bloom.
basically Ed Bloom in different time periods, but also saying different versions of Ed Bloom is also accurate.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Deep Roy also being in this too. And
Mm-hmm.
well, even though I've not seen it yet, I didn't quite realize, and nor did I see photos, still shots of her. Did you ever notice Tiki? Because you've seen this movie. Did you
I've
ever?
seen
Did you?
this movie like at least 5 or 6 times at
Okay.
least.
Well, did you ever happen to notice that a character by the name of Ruthie, at the age of 8, was
Mm-hmm.
played by young Miley Cyrus?
I know exactly what character you're talking about. I did not know that was Miley Cyrus.
Yep, it was. Also,
Interesting.
these
Edward
two.
Bloom's love story is delightful, Dragon. I hard agree with that. That everyday
Mhm.
things are getting closer montage. Just chef's kiss.
Hmm. Also, like, yeah, again, like the circus that's there, and also because, well, Ping and Jing, these identical sisters, I know about that. But, well, of course, the music and the score, no doubt, from Danny Elfman, fantastic. Yeah, and I've seen some bits and pieces of this, I will say that, but, yeah, just overall, I know this.
Dragon, I will get to that sequence when I get to this movie. Trust me, I will break that sequence down. Don't you worry.
Yeah. Well, to finish off what I have to say about Big Fish, like I said, even though as of the stream, and if you ever watch this, if anybody who watches this stream again, I have by now seen the movie, but just point being, um, I know for a fact that it's one of Tim Burton's top masterpieces. It is fantastic. What was brought
I mean,
to
you never know. You could watch this and be like, "This sucks. I don't understand what the appeal is." You never know with movies.
well, I don't think I'm gonna hate
No,
it.
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Uh, yeah, just overall, I know that Big Fish is one of Tim Burton's top masterpieces. It's fantastic. This being a movie adaptation of a book, and
hmm I'm
knowing that
very
there's
curious to read that book. By the way, I definitely should.
okay, yeah, a lot of emotion to it, and heart wrenching moments, and obviously there'll be some funny moments. But
Mhm.
yeah, just overall for me, Big Fish. It is, and it is a fact, one of Tim Burton's top masterpieces, and no doubt because of course I like it, and well, and whenever and if anybody who rewatches the stream, I've seen it by now. You get my point, yeah. So just yeah, that so overall, Big Fish, it's great, one of Tim Burton's top masterpieces, and that being my number 3 spot.
Okay, alrighty. My number 3, and this is where things like again, I feel like all three of these movies are basically perfect. They're essential Burden. The question is which one of them is going to come out on top. My number 3 is going to be Beetlejuice. Um,
Hmm.
I'm actually kind of surprised that I have this higher than you do. Considering just how seminal and classic it is.
I know, but it's still. I mean, it's still high and up in the
No,
top
no, no.
20.
I'm not, yeah, it's fine. It's fine. I,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. The presence of Jeffrey Jones in this movie, I'm sorry, it does kind of. I can look past it, but like I have a really hard time, especially with stuff like that. I have a really hard time, like once something like that, like I will. I don't want to bring up current events, but there is one show on Cartoon Network that I was never really into to begin with. But let's just say I'm extra not going to ever be into that show after recent events. Let's just leave it at that.
I think I
Yeah, you
might
can
know
read
what.
you can read between the lines there. You can read between the lines there. I don't want to name drop the dude. But yeah, so but honestly, besides that, this movie is pretty much borderline perfect. I think the only thing that this movie does not do as well as the other two is the pace. I think it takes a little bit too long to
Mm.
establish everything, to set everything up, to have the main characters die and then establish the afterlife and establish Beetlejuice and stuff. It's fine. Like, it's not like I'm sitting around forever like, oh my God, when are we going to get to the fireworks factory? But I'm just saying, with the other two, I think just right from the jump, we're in it. We're just completely like inundated in Burton's world. This one, you have to kind of wait a while. You have to kind of like be a little patient with it. It kind of like slowly unfolds over time. Then it's one of those movies that once the fantastical stuff does kick in, then buckle up, because it gets weird and it gets like really, really off the wall and really inventive. I think probably as far as like the technical stuff in this movie, I would say it's probably his best work. Just as far as like all the practical effects, all the set pieces, all the production design, the makeup. I mean, the look of this movie is probably his best. Michael Keaton, obviously one of the all-time great Burton performances. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really have a lot to add that you didn't already add. I just think that the other two movies that I have not gotten to yet kind of flow a little bit better as just full packages, where from beginning to end, they are just tight, perfect masterpieces. I'd say Beetlejuice is like Burton's messy masterpiece, if that makes sense. It's a little all over the place when it comes to pacing, but it's just everything about it still really works, really holds up. Just visually, it might be the best. So yeah, that's my stance on that. All right, Eli, we're getting into the top two. Just keep in mind, I think we're making good time, but I do want to maybe keep this under 3 hours. We're at 2:30 right now, so just keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Number two, what do you got?
Number two, and if anybody has not figured this out, even you, Tiki and Dragon, number two, Batman.
I am with all due respect to Batman 89, I'm very glad it's not number one. I'm going to say that much. I'm sorry.
Well, I think by now you know what number one's going to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so what I have
Which
to
isn't
say...
surprising. I'm in the minority of people that don't put that movie in my number one spot.
Okay, well, what I have to say about Batman 89, well, you talked about what you thought of Batman 89, Tiki, and now it's my turn. So, Batman from 1989. Well, there is no doubt because, well, this did make film history, comic book movie history. I mean, there was that, and of course, the Superman. Well, I mean, especially the first Superman film that made comic book movie history. First came Superman, and then this. And with what Tim Burton had to offer and bring to his take on Batman, just so memorable and a classic, and from the late 1980s, and with good casting, with Michael Keaton, of course, playing the title character, Jack Nicholson playing the clown prince of crime, and of course, you guys have probably noticed this, that in the thumbnail for this, yeah, Michael Keaton and Jack Nicholson, their characters, yeah, being in there, so, yeah, and then, say what you will about Vicky Vale. I mean, I had no problem with her and what's her face who played Vicky Vale. I thought she was fine to me, and also the other supporting character always sticking by Vicky's side. He was quite good too. Nice to see that he came back to reprise his role just for one quick cameo in one of those crossover events of the CW DC shows. And also, yeah, the other supporting characters from, like, say, Bob and Commissioner Gordon in this, and of course Michael Goff as Alfred, all fantastic. A great Batmobile design, the music and score by Danny Elfman, the set and designs. Oh, and can't forget to mention the one time where in a Batman film where we see Harvey Dent, just as before he became Two-Face, and Harvey Dent in this, of course, Harvey Dent in this Batman film being played by the one and only Billy D. Williams, aka Lando Calrissian. This was the only Tim Burton film that Billy D. Williams was in. And the fact that Billy D. Williams would get to play Two-Face again, but this time voice him in the Lego Batman film, which that was, you gotta admit, that was
I
that
wish
was
he had more to do in that movie, but yeah, that was cool to see.
Yeah, I was about to say, you gotta admit that was really awesome. That yeah, they got Billy D. Williams
Mhm.
back for that, and where he did get to technically play Two Face finally. So um, yeah, and I think the
Forget
Lego
about the
design,
cool side of the pillow. I'm the evil side of the pillow.
yeah, um, I think the Lego design for Two Face and that probably. I guess it's like it looks like something that maybe what would have been if we saw Billy D. Williams as Two Face. But anyway, so
Mhm.
um, yeah, and just the direction of where this Batman film was going. And I know, because I know how you feel, Tiki. But for me, it doesn't bother because the thing is, like, everybody has their own version of Batman, their own variant, and how they do the characters.
I
But I
just
mean,
want to emphasize too, I'm not a Batman purist. It's just one of those things where like the no killing thing is the only thing that like I do think that this kind of bothers me with the Batman rules.
eh, well, but what I was gonna say was the fact that in this variation of Batman, that well, because it turns out that Joker, but before he became the Clown Prince of crime, Jack Napier, because he was the murderer of he was the killer of Bruce Wayne's parents. That was pretty interesting in this Batman variation. Um, and just the fact that Bruce would re-encounter the man who took away his parents, and well, especially when it is the Clown Prince of Crime, and yeah, because just it's that sequence, just Batman confronting Joker and just saying the exact same quote in return, like, ever dance with the devil in the pale moonlight, and just the way Batman says it, Michael Keaton, and yeah, just like this movie had some great moments, and yeah, I don't think you did not talk about this when you talked about Batman '89, the songs from Prince,
No, I kind of figured you'd have some stuff to say about them, so yeah.
and
I
which I
I
do.
gotta be honest with you. I'm like I think they're fine.
I do
I'm
too.
not necessarily like over the moon about them.
I think, yeah. So, in which I do have some things to say about the songs from Prince and Batman
I
'80.
think "Kiss from a Rose" is like a more memorable Batman song than anything in this soundtrack, frankly.
Well, that was from Batman Forever, right?
Indeed, and I don't even like Batman Forever. Batman Forever is my least favorite of the four of them.
Surprisingly, I do like Batman Forever. So, not saying I love it. I'm just saying I like it. It's okay.
Mhm.
But yeah, I need to listen to that again. Kiss from the Rose, because
Kiss from a Rose.
I know I've heard it, but it's just not something that I would think of all the time. And
Mhm.
yeah, with the lyrics and the music. But anyway, so the songs from Prince and Batman '89, I think because they even to this day, they I think they're it's still fine, and and it works in this Batman variant, and well, the fact because these songs being definitely linked with Joker, because from Party Man to Trust, and I mean, especially because with Party Man, because that sequence where Joker and his henchmen arrive and gentlemen, let's broaden our minds, Lawrence, and starting up the song and just messing up the paints, except for one. There's no, Joker wanted to leave one painting alone, and oh yeah, because the fact that the little blue icon of the little blue channel is boy blue. Well,
Mhm.
the boy blue painting does appear in that sequence. So, um, and also in Naked Gun, Frank Drebin accidentally destroyed it. So, if you recall. But anyways, so um, yeah, from that, and also technically because Batman '89 had its very as of now a coincidence an early version of Harley Quinn, I guess you could say. And just the murders that happens, well, I mean, mainly from Joker. And when he's first unveiled, he takes down his old boss, and now he's taking his old boss's place. And some memorable quotes, some good action, and for that time, and again, just the music and score and the climax, and even with like say Batman in the Batwing, and yeah, just what happens in that giant church, and yeah, where the climax happens, really good, and the demise of Joker. One of the few times where, rare times, I guess you could say, like there's that, and there's Arkham City, the Arkham City game, where Joker legitimately dies. Like I feel like yeah, that's sometimes rare for a Batman villain to die. Like there's Joker and there's Penguin. Penguin in Batman Returns. He legitimately dies in that. And and the fact that right at the end of Batman '89, Gotham City now fully accepts Batman and having the Bat
I
Signal.
do like that arc. I do like the fact that the bat signal comes right at the end of the movie. I think that's always something that's always kind of been special to me about this movie. Especially when you consider the fact that the marketing for this movie literally was just the bat symbol. And it's like you have to earn the bat symbol. You have to wait for it. I think
Yeah,
that whole thing was really clever.
absolutely. Yeah, and like I said, some memorable quotes, especially this is where in Batman '89, and it's thanks to Michael Keaton, he made one memorable line and quote, like the main quote for Batman, which of course being "I'm Batman." That like
Yeah.
he made that famous, and that being Batman's main quote. Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, and again, just Michael Keaton as the Dark Knight, which at first, and even my dad was one of them. They doubted Michael Keaton as Batman. They just thought it was a complete
It's
disaster.
okay. I
But
doubted Heath Ledger as Joker. I was one of those people.
oh
I
yeah,
was like, the 10 things you hate about me, Knight's Tale guy? Really?
yeah. But eventually, when the film did come out, all those doubts, I'm pretty sure, because yeah, they regretted them doubting on Michael Keaton, and even especially when he came back in The Flash. Oh yeah.
Uh-huh.
Oh, a dragon says the museum scene was an iconic Joker scene, which I agree on that.
Oh, yeah.
And Dragon makes a good point on this because I had talked about the fact that Joker legitimately dies in this film. He says Joker's death with the laughing box was haunting.
Mhm.
Yeah, and technically that was the last laugh from the Joker. He got one last laugh from the Joker, but it's from a laughing box. So um, and I agree, just the way the laughing box laughs, and just the close up shot of Joker's dead, Joker's corpse, just
Yep.
that's what makes it haunting. Um, yeah, and I know you did like another thing that because Tiki did not like, but I don't see any problem with it. That being where Vicky finds out, and she was slowly but surely realizing this, and it's thanks to Alfred, where yeah, because she now of course fully knows that that Bruce is Batman, and I I'll be completely honest, I had no problem with that, and Alfred allowing Vicky, because I think Alfred in some way knew about this too, and well, because the many times, well, at times where he was with Vicky, but anyway, so um, and you know what? Because it does deliver some good interesting stuff that Bruce points out, because he had a problem that he was Batman,
Yeah.
and it's like it's something that he has to do because no one else is doing it. Um, and the romance between Vicky and Bruce, well, kind of sad because well, just the fact that Bruce is stuck and he can't undo it because being Batman and such. But yeah, but it's nice that things didn't look that bad for Bruce and Vicky, especially like towards the end where yeah, like Alfred lending Vicky a ride, and well, Bruce was going to be late for dinner. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, just overall, Batman '89. It's definitely one of Tim Burton's top masterpieces, and it, like I said, it made comic book movie history, film history, and the fact that Batman in particular, it made its way into the top hero list of AFI, and that the same goes for Jack Nicholson's Joker for the villain list. Yeah, just everything about Batman '89 with what Tim Burton had to offer, his own take of Batman with the cast of characters, the story to it, the style, the emotional and funny moments, and with the music and score by Danny Elfman, everything about Batman '89 is fantastic. Even if there are those like Tiki, just some that might not have a good soft spot for it, but that's not to say like those like they don't like it. Still, just how can you not? How can you at least not like and enjoy Batman '89? So yeah, just overall, it's definitely one of Tim Burton's top masterpieces, and that being my number 2 spot.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm very self-conscious about the time right now because I need to, like, generally speaking, my family likes to go about 10 minutes from now, so we do not have a lot of time here. Okay, my number 2 is going to be Big Fish, and I'm just going to kind of speed run through this because we just don't have time for me to. I just everything about it is for me just this is kind of where you go into like the whole like basically my decision between number 1 and number 2 was like, do I want it to be objectively Tim Burton's best film that he's ever made, which I do think is Big Fish. Objectively, I think Big Fish is objectively the best film that he's ever made. Or do I want to go with the movie that just showcases him at the height of his powers and just feels the most like essentially like the blue meth of Tim Burton, which is what my number 1 is. But with Big Fish, I mean, you got Albert Finney, you got Billy Crudup, Ewan McGregor. Those 3 are awesome. Just across the board, just great performances. Dragon said a little while ago, Ewan McGregor very understated in this movie, which I very much agree with. Or I'm sorry, Ewan McGregor is not understated. Billy Crudup is understated. Yeah, we've done good up to 2. We've done good, man. But I just
felt like throwing something in the chat because
it's fine. It's just the issue is just the fact that my family is going to be in bed soon. So
I know.
Okay. And I don't like please don't take that as me like yelling at you either. So anyways. Okay, so I think the production design in this movie is immaculate. I love all the locations. I love the town with all the shoes on the telephone wires. That shit is just iconic visually speaking, just absolutely takes my breath away. The scene where Edward Bloom first sees his wife and time literally freezes around him pushing the popcorn away as the popcorn's like suspended in anti-gravity, just again takes my breath away. There's moments in this movie that absolutely floor me. I love Carl the Giant. I think Carl the Giant is just one of the most sympathetic, relatable, lovable characters that's ever been in a Tim Burton movie. Steve Buscemi, I think this is such a cool introduction to Steve Buscemi with the with him just being this random like, oh, I'm a poet laureate. Yes, me, Mr. Ratface, Steve Buscemi. I'm the poet. I'm like, okay, Steve. And yeah, this movie, Eli, if you don't know exactly how this movie ends, I will just say,
I think I kind of know.
Every time it makes me cry. Every time I sob like a freaking baby.
Ed turns into a fish, does he?
Something to that extent, yes.
Yeah, I seem to recall because I've seen bits and
pieces. It's a very metaphorical
it.
ending, but man, it gets me in the feels every time. It freaking crutches me.
And as Dragon points out, Big Fish is quite possibly Burton's finest film. That ending alone is a celebration of why we tell stories.
Amen. I can't say it better than myself. I'm just going to wrap it up. Just going to throw it to you. All right, you're number one, Eli, and let's you know the situation, so let's
and you'll be last for your number one. So
I will. I think I'll go through my number one relatively quickly. You know what my number one is at this point.
I'll try pardon my French, I'll try my damnest being quick with
okay. Okay.
So it's obvious, because we got up to like say number 3 and 2, it was obvious by that point what was going to be like say number 2 and 1 for each of us, and for me, my number one, and this is kind of this is personal for me because it is even like for my own top list, I would put this at number 1 without a doubt. And I would put Nightmare Before Christmas at number 2, my very own top list and such. Number 1 for me is Ed Wood. So, Ed Wood. What's there not to like about the biopic of Ed Wood? And this is something that was definitely right up at Tim Burton's alley. And Burton being fascinated with the story and background of Ed Wood. Fascinated with the background story of Ed Wood and also the relationship between Ed Wood and Bela Lugosi. And, quite similar to the relationship that Burton had with Vincent Price.
Oh, yeah, big time.
Yeah, especially because Bela Lugosi was one of Ed Wood's idols. So the fact that, because when Ed Wood, he meets Bela Lugosi, it's amazing. And, even though, because like Ed Wood, he at times really struggling, trying to make a success of his directing and filmmaking career and wasting people's money making films. I mean, you can tell and you can see his love and passion for filmmaking, but sadly, even though he had always trying his damnest to direct something, just sadly just didn't have that. Not able to make at least a pretty good successful film. But like say when it gets up to Plan 9, like that, even like Ed Wood made a good point. This is the one I'll be remembered for, because technically, there's something about Plan 9 that even though it's not the best,
I feel like with Plan 9, there's like the appeal to it is exactly the kind of appeal that's in something like The Room. And that's that you can actually see the ambition behind it. You can see what he was going for, even if it didn't work out.
Yeah. That's true. And the romance and the love life of Ed Wood, I think, between that, Ed Wood's filmmaking career, and the friendship between him and Bela Lugosi, I think all three of those, and because it was all in one movie, I think this movie did very well and did its best with all that stuff. The romance and love life with Ed Wood, a bit tragic at first, but when he finds the right girl for him, and the fact that she's perfectly okay when he tells her that he likes to wear women's clothing. And also because with Bela Lugosi and him being betrayed by the late legendary Martin Landau, and even though Bela Lugosi in real life didn't swear at all, I think in this, it just somehow worked. And it just, for this. Yeah,
it's an interesting point because I kind of feel like this movie kind of like toes the line between being a biopic and being an homage. Does that make sense?
Now say that again, so I can follow.
It kind of toes the line between being a biopic and being an homage.
Yeah, I would agree on that.
Where some of the stuff isn't like 100% factual, but it's more in line of like what you would expect the character to be like with the Bela Lugosi swearing thing.
I mean, not every biopic is always gonna tell everything that happened in real life.
And honestly, my favorite biopics are the ones that really do streamline it, like Social Network, Steve Jobs, that kind of stuff.
Does Saving Mr. Banks count?
Yeah, I would say Saving Mr. Banks counts.
Yeah, I think especially
although I consider that more of a biopic of P.L. Travers than a biopic of Walt Disney, but
I think
if you consider it a biopic of P.L. Travers, then I'd say it counts.
Yeah, especially for Saving Mr. Banks, that one at least had to be done right, I believe, and I think it did.
I think the most impressive thing about Saving Mr. Banks to me is they they were basically in an impossible situation with how to handle the ending, considering the real PL Travers freaking hated the movie. And so it's like, get her emotional, get her crying about the movie, but specifically because of the stuff involving her dad. And that's how it, like, yeah, she has a very unpleasant time with the movie, but not in the way in real life. I think that was really clever.
Yeah, I think it was done. It was done good. So, and because
and Tom Hanks's monologue about the walking, the delivering newspapers in the snowstorm, like, oh my god.
And what again? And what
in the snowstorm as a kid?
Okay, so in what film?
In Saving Mr. Banks.
Oh, okay, yeah, that part. Yeah, definitely. And I was gonna say, because there's always gonna be changes in biopics, and well, definitely for Ed Wood. But hey, if there's gonna be if there's gonna be changes, yeah, but make the changes have to be good and make sense. And I think for Ed Wood, it does its best. And just with the rest of the casting, Jeffrey Jones is Gridwald, Lisa Maria is Vampira, what's him face, played Tor Johnson. Everybody who portrayed those, I think they did a spot on job. And also the fact that Bill Murray is in a Tim Burton film, just with the funny moments and emotional and tragic moments that happen in this movie. God, especially for Bela Lugosi, just horrible things happening to poor Bella, and how he did go into rehab at a certain point in the film, and he started to do pretty well. But at a certain point, well, he would tragically pass away, and, well, the last bit of footage that Ed Wood would shoot with him, making its way into Plan 9, and, yeah, I mean, again, just this movie had great moments. And it was great to see that this was in black and white, rightfully so. And also, like, Vincent D'Onofrio's appearance as Orson Welles. That was, I mean, you know what? That was a great scene where, and how, well, Orson Welles was someone else that Ed Wood admired. And the fact that he meets him might have happened in reality. And great advice that Orson Welles gives to Ed Wood when it comes to filmmaking and such, and fighting with producers. And just making the dreams happen. And
that cameo very much reminds me of the David Lynch John Ford cameo at the end of The Fabelmans.
Okay, well, as of the stream, I have not seen The Fabelmans.
Oh, bro, get on The Fabelmans. My god, that movie's in my top 5 Spielberg movies, dude.
Yeah, and you and Dragon had great Actually, I did not see that one, but I have no doubt, because when you guys did The Fabelmans for Spielberg Month, the last year of Spielberg Month, had some great things to say about it.
Nothing but praise for The Fabelmans. Nothing but praise.
Yeah, and that loosely being based off of Spielberg's life.
I would say it's borderline just a Spielberg biopic, honestly.
Yeah, but
literally the only thing that is really changed is the names.
Yeah, they're not. Yeah, it's not Steven Spielberg. It's someone else taking young Spielberg's place.
But by all intents and purposes, the movie. Anyways, this is not a Fabelmans podcast.
Just to mention it as an example, and yes, I too need to watch The Fabelmans. Missing out on a biggie.
Yeah, that is a big one, especially I feel like The Fabelmans completes Spielberg's filmography in such a cool way. Yeah. If The Fabelmans was the last movie that Spielberg ever directed, I think it'd be the perfect ending to his filmography. I'll say that much. Anyways.
That sounds about right. Anyway, so yeah, again, just that sequence with Orson Welles and Ed Wood, fantastic. And, well, Ed Wood proceeding on, doing Plan 9, and just again, sad things that happen for Ed Wood, Bela Lugosi, and everybody that gets involved in Ed Wood's projects. And even though, because a good chunk of them, because they seem to have a really good time doing the work and such, and with Ed Wood, definitely. Yeah, just what more do I have to say? Ed Wood, it is definitely one of Tim Burton's top masterpieces. And Ed Wood as well, not just Edward Scissorhands, but Ed Wood as well being another one of Tim Burton's favorites. He did state that. Um, yeah, just overall, Ed Wood being in my number one spot. Ed Wood is one of my top favorite Tim Burton films, and yeah, so there you go.
All right, my number one, I'm going to go by quick because I think it's kind of pretty obvious at this point if you're doing the math. My number one is going to be Edward Scissorhands, baby. I just think this movie is the ultimate, like, it's Tim Burton personified. It's Tim Burton blue meth. It's like,
It
it's
is.
it's the perfected version of what a Tim Burton movie is. You've got the weirdness and the production design and the quirky performances of something like Beetlejuice. You've got the emotion and the just absolutely like rip your heart out emotion of something like Big Fish. And that right there is why I think this movie rises to the cream of the crop. It's got everything.
And let's not I don't mean to cut you off, and let's not forget the music and score by Danny Elfman, because music also being an important thing in movies and for Tim Burton's world of filmmaking.
Yeah, it's got it all. I mean, I think the production design is absolutely immaculate. I honestly don't know if Tim Burton, like, I think that Beetlejuice technically might be a more impressive movie with like the sheer amount of stuff going on in that movie with like, you know, all the stop motion and stuff like that. But like just the sheer production design of the suburbs and the castle and the shrubbery gardens and stuff like that. I mean, it's just utterly unforgettable. Like, you are never going to forget sets like that. You're never going to forget imagery like that. Also, I just want to point this out because this is a very personal thing with me in this movie. Eli, did you know that my mother, when I was growing up in the 90s, was indeed an Avon representative?
An Avon representative.
Yes.
I don't think I fully get that, honestly.
At the beginning of the movie, Diane Weiss is going around like, hey, it's your Avon representative. Avon representative.
Okay.
And then she goes up to the castle, and that's how she finds Edward, because she's just going door to door selling Avon.
Okay. Huh.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. What a coincidence that your mom.
I've always associated my mother with the Diane Weiss character. Absolutely.
Well,
Avon representative.
Did your mom have anything to say about that in Edward Scissorhands?
I don't know if I've ever watched this movie with her, to tell you the truth. She is not one of those people that really likes Tim Burton, like horror weird stuff. She's more into, like, you know, the Notebook style movies. You know what I mean? Like melodramas and stuff like that. But yeah. So I mean, I think that just kind of sums it up. I mean, I think Johnny Depp, like, maybe his all-time best performance. I mean, just every time that he's on screen, you just feel so much damn empathy for him. You know what I mean? Just like your heart just absolutely goes out to him. Like, he must be in such crazy amounts of discomfort with those damn scissor hands. And, you know, and I'm sure Johnny Depp himself was in a lot of discomfort with having to deal with them as props. And I feel like that all translates into the performance. I don't have anything to say about Vincent Price that you didn't say already. Vincent Price, the stuff with Vincent Price in this movie, absolutely some of the all-time best stuff that Burton has ever directed. Yeah, I just think this is like a flawless movie. I think it's absolutely everything that Tim Burton does right. It's the pathos, it's the heart, but it's also the weirdness and the insane production design. It's everything. And I think it's a very worthy number one.
Yep. And Dragon commented this, ding dong, the
Avon ladies here. All right, so Eli, really quick, do you want to just recap your top 10?
Certainly. Okay, so anybody who didn't watch the entirety of the stream, some that showed up late and such, to recap our top 10 list from 10 to 1, starting with me. Number 10, Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children. Number 9, Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Number 8, Sleepy Hollow. Number 7, Sweeney Todd. Number 6, Corpse Bride. Number 5, Beetlejuice. Number 4, Edward Scissorhands. Number 3, Big Fish. Number 2, Batman from 1989. Batman 89 is, as of now, people seem to refer to it. And number 1, Ed Wood.
Right. For me, I have number 10, Corpse Bride. Number 9, Batman Returns. Number 8, Frankenweenie. Number 7, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Number 6, Sweeney Todd, the Demon Barber of Fleet Street. Number 5, Ed Wood. Number 4, Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Number 3, Beetlejuice. Number 2, Big Fish. And number 1, Edward Scissorhands. All right.
And Kogios, Kogios just now commented this. You both did a great, entertaining job. I love the 2-part Tim Burton ranking stream. Thank you, Kogios.
I'm so glad you enjoyed it, Kogios. All right. So, folks, we've actually got a really exciting week. Like, honestly, one of the most exciting weeks in a while on the podcast. And I know I've been sitting out a lot on the podcast recently. But, so tomorrow, Dragon and I will be doing a supersized movie memoirs for the August movies. And let me just say, I've seen a lot of movies in August in theaters. Definitely the best month of movies so far this year. I will say that much, just consistently. And then Monday, Labor Day, Monkey will finally be joining me, and we will finally be embarking on our great Disney Toon ranking podcast. And I actually have something to reveal about that. Do you want to know?
Oh, you're directing at me?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Are you sure you want to know?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry.
Hey, sometimes Tiki. Sometimes for me, I don't care if I find out surprises and spoilers. Sometimes,
Eli, I'm literally just messing with you. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
All right. So basically, the idea with the Great Ranking Podcast for Disney Toon is instead of going worst to best, we're going to be going best to worst. So we're going to be starting with our number 1 Disney Toon movie, and we're going to be building up to what we think is the absolute worst Disney Toon movie. So I think that's a clever twist. That was Monkey's idea. We'll see how it goes.
I think it just about makes sense because there are some Disney
with Disney Toons. I feel like there's like 3 or 4 that always get put at the cream of the crop, but like I feel like there's such a wide variety of opinions on which one is the actual worst one.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah. Okay. So that will be coming Monday, and then also Wednesday. I'm gonna announce this as well. Wednesday, Peregrine and I will be joining forces, and we will be essentially doing a mid-year check-in on the Golden Tikis. So essentially, we're going to be announcing 20 categories this year. Keep in mind, last year we had about 15 categories, so we're adding a few. And we're also going to be going through those categories and locking in one nominee for each of the categories that's going to be in the final poll. So look forward to that. I'm very excited about that. And as always, we got the Recapinator with Dragon and Jacob coming up. Maybe we'll get to Batcave this week. It's just with Batcave, I literally have to read like 20 issues of a comic, and I'm not sure if I'm going to have time for that still, unfortunately. Dragon, we'll see. I'll talk to you about that tomorrow.
Aren't you and Dragon just... It feels like you by now are almost done with Batcave.
We're so close. We literally have 2 more to go. We have to cover this comic storyline, and then we've got 1 more episode.
Okay.
And this comic storyline, it's just I've been just insanely busy, so I haven't really had a lot of time to sit down and actually read it. But, all right.
Yeah.
Okay, but yeah, to give the final thanks here, and then we'll get out of here. Big thanks to Kogios, Blue Dragon 5, Sonia Pantoja, Keeper Colby, randomly popped up just to make the Miss Peregrine reference.
And Dan, what's his last name, who popped up in the
Dan Sheehan. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Y'all rock. This has been really fun.
I
And we got some cool stuff coming. So thank you for coming on, Eli.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and what a journey this was from last weekend and to this. And now that we've literally, as of right now, we've now entered in September. This was a lot of fun from parts 1 to 2, and especially for part 2. Things like it ended off pretty good, and when it came to our top 10 lists, and yeah.
All
As you said, Tiki, a lot of new exciting things coming up for the channel, and well, I will return soon, whenever, and it all depends. I know we've talked about that before. And for those that follow me on the Little Blue channel, yeah, because as was mentioned earlier, Tiki will return for some more review collabs, a few that will be coming up soon, pretty much, in October and such. But
So in other words, this is a double MCU post-credit scene. Little Blue will return. Tiki will return
on the Little Blue channel.